Good evening. Welcome to Sun Media Niagara's coverage of tonight's provincial election, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and sponsored by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce, Lancaster, Brooks and Welch in St. Catharines and Welland, and the Electronic Depot in Niagara Falls, and Doc McGilligan's Restaurant and Irish Pub in Niagara Falls. Over the next few hours, we'll be bringing you the most comprehensive live coverage for this important election that you'll find anywhere. My name is Karina Walter from the St. Catharines Standard, and tonight I'll be joined by guests here in our studio at 1 St. Paul Street in St. Catharines. We'll also take you live to the scene in the 4 Niagara ridings where candidates are waiting for their results. We'll hear from the Premier of Ontario, and of course you, the viewers, will have lots of opportunities to have your say via social media, the websites of the Welland Tribune, Niagara Falls Review, and St. Catharines Standard, and through email. With me now is Calvin Reid, a senior consultant with Enterprise Canada, St. Catharines office, and a former political reporter here at the St. Catharines Standard. Cal, what are you expecting to see tonight?
Well, Karina, it's going to be a pretty tough race to call. All over the province, it's been kind of back and forth. The polls have been really volatile. I've never got a sense that voters are really engaged in this campaign much at all, which just leads to big question marks tonight. Trying to make any kind of predictions in terms of the turnout is a bit of a mug's game. But when it's this tight, when it's this close, I think one of the most important things is the get out the vote effort for each campaign. That's going to become vitally important. I think especially in some of the ridings here in Niagara, St. Catharines and Niagara Falls in particular, it's going to be key that they rally their supporters and make sure they get to a ballot box. The one thing that I do feel about tonight, and this could be the kind of result that the proponents of proportional representation are looking for. It is not beyond the realm of possibility that tonight the party that gets the most popular votes doesn't necessarily get the most seats. And if that does in fact happen, I think you're going to find a whole new swath of people who are interested in learning a little bit more about proportional representation and how it might work in Ontario.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Niagara. Of course, Tim Hudak usually wins out in the West End. NDP are usually the front runners in Welland. Jim Bradley is always holding St. Catharines. Niagara Falls is kind of interesting. What do you think is going to happen there? Is it a bellwether riding?
Well, it's an interesting riding. I'm very interested in the Niagara Falls race, especially with the by-election just a couple of months ago. For a couple of generations, it's been a bellwether riding, and the way it's gone, the government's gone. Obviously, in February, they elected their first non-government MPP in quite some time. How that's going to play out tonight, it is extremely hard to say. Again, the get-out vote's going to be very important for both the Wayne Gates and the Bart Maves campaigns, and whichever one is able to kind of organize that ground war better is going to fare better at the ballot box, obviously.
And I guess joining us is someone who's no stranger to political elections, Kim Crater, the former MPP in Niagara Falls. Kim, what do you remember about nights like this?
Well, I remember election day because I always went in and voted for myself, and when I got there my name wasn't on the ballot, so I was quite disappointed. This is really interesting to watch. First, provincially, Tim's message has been, he got criticized the last election because he didn't have a platform. This time he actually put a platform out, and that's been the centerpiece of the other two parties attacking him. So his message has been pretty clear. We have a massive deficit. We have to deal with it. Here's the road that I propose that we go forward. The other two parties are saying, you know, things will be okay. We'll pay off the debt down the road, but in the meantime, we're going to keep our services and we're going to continue spending money on different projects. So that's going to be determined by the public what they think is the most important thing that they feel needs to be dealt with. Here in this riding, I knew when I left that, and I was just saying to a few people, the reason I had any success in the last couple elections was because I was never considered a Liberal. And that's not to be negative, but people looked at me as sort of as Kim Crater, the person. So this last by-election, I knew in my heart that it was going to be very challenging for anyone who was running. No reflection on the person, just anyone who was running, because it was a backlash about a number of things that the party had done, whether it was the racetrack or a number of issues.
Sorry, Kim, if I can just jump in there. You know, the party did take quite a hit in February. I believe Joyce Morocco's numbers were less than half of what you secured in 2011. What do the Liberals have to do in Niagara Falls to rebuild?
They're going to have to, you know, I don't know. You know, if I knew, I would have shared it. I don't know. Many of the things that occurred, you know, before I left, back here, they were the public here really were upset about, and took it out on the Liberals. We used to, I'm being very upfront because it's my style, but I said to the Premier once, I don't live in that riding where if I'm in Toronto, everybody votes you because you say you're a Liberal. You're just a Liberal, they vote for you. We live in ridings where it's the individual, and the people have to have faith in that individual and not just the party. And so that's the challenge, though. The next election, they'll have to have a candidate that has some recognition, that people believe in him, that he or she, and that they truly care about the riding, and that sort of comes first. That's the success I had, because it's just what I believe.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Liberal campaign in general. At the outset, Premier Wynne was saying she was trying to get run a positive campaign, but this past week she's been pretty nasty at times. What are your thoughts on that kind of strategy in the waning days of a campaign?
Well, my thoughts are pretty straightforward. If you go back and look at all the ads I ran when I in all my elections, I never put in one negative ad. I don't believe in those. I didn't do the robocalls. I think it's an insult for people to get phone calls 50 times a day. I believe that you got out, you knocked on the door. I said to you just earlier, it's the most vicious campaign I have ever seen. And I said earlier that the worst enemy of politicians is politicians. And this campaign, for all of them, shows that the philosophy is try to be negative, and the more negative you are and the louder you yell, that seems to be the philosophy. Well, that must make it true, because we say it. I was disappointed to see that kind of a campaign going on. That's not what politics should be about.
Do you think those kind of campaigns do reach voters, though, more than positive message campaigns?
Well, the politicians believe it. And the people, they hire people up there. They actually do not come and sit with the members of Parliament and say, give us your advice, how should we run the campaign, what is the direction should we go in. They hire people, don't even know who these people are. They show up and they tell you what the campaign's going to be. And they even send you, I'm telling you everything, they even send you out flyers. They send you out flyers and pamphlets, and you're supposed to distribute those. I never, all the years I ran, I never distributed any of the flyers that I got from the Liberal Party. We stood on our own and our own merits. And I think that's what politics, to get integrity back into politics, and I'm venting a bit, that there's going to have to be a change. Because, you said it earlier, the number of people that stop me and say, Kim, I don't know who to vote for, and I don't think I want to vote for anybody. I've never heard that often. It's no reflection on the candidates here at all.
Well, just real quick, can I get your thoughts or predictions? What's going to happen in Niagara Falls riding, and what's going to happen across the province?
I think in Niagara Falls, I don't know. I think we're all saying it'll be extremely close between Wayne, a good person, and Bart Maves, who's run a number of times, and he's a good friend. So I really can't predict. Across the province, it'll be a minority government.
Any thoughts of whether it's going to be a PC, Liberal, or NDP minority?
I think it might be a Liberal minority, and then we're back to. And we'll close quickly, but I remember when the media called me and said, Kim, are you excited because they're a minority government? And I said, yes, they wrote up the story. Because I thought in my heart it would work. Minority governments don't work because our electoral system, when you get up there, the objective of the opposition is how do I become the government, so you don't work together. That's how it works. It's a sad thing.
Well, we'd like to spend a few minutes looking at the candidates in each of the 4 ridings. In St. Catharines, we have Jim Bradley for the Liberals, Matt Cisco for the PCs, Jenny Stevens, also a St. Catharines councillor with Matt Cisco. She's running for the NDP, Karen Fraser of the Green Party, Sala Wazirudin for the Communists, Nicholas Dushko for the Libertarian Party. I guess the big question here is, can anybody knock off Jim Bradley? Kim, what do you think?
No, that's not the right. Jim is, I will tell you, spending all those years with him, he's a very dedicated individual. He truly cares. And we used to kid around because we'd say that if they were going to have Parliament sitting at Christmas, Jim would be clapping his hands because he would be there, because he passionately believes in democracy and he cares. So I think he'll be successful again because he's Jim Bradley.
He's been in office at Queen's Park for 36 years and 138 days as of today, all through the NDP government, through the PC government. What's his secret? Is it that passion you're talking about?
It's he's honest and he's straightforward. He kind of knows how to stay away from the media, so I give him credit for that. It doesn't hurt him. And what people don't see, as a minister, there's an obligation that you have to always speak in the direction the government's going. But if you ever came into our caucus meetings where the Premier's there and all the MPPs, Jim Bradley, I will tell you, he's not bashful at all about standing up and saying this isn't right and this is what we should do and we are going in the wrong direction. He's not a minister that will just say to the Premier everything's wonderful. And that's the side that people never saw of Jim Bradley. I would see it.
His last election, 2011, was one of his narrowest victories. I guess, does that carry over? Has he got a little bit more of a fight on his hands this time, given that it was so close last time and what's happened over the last 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, I think so, because of the incidences that took place, whether it's the gas-fired plants or eHealth or Orange. Those, Jim's not involved in them, just like I'm not involved in them. They happen up there, and not things that we support, but they happen. So I think those will have some effect on him, but I'm confident that Jim will be re-elected. His goal is to be a member of Parliament at 101. That's his goal.
How do you think other candidates should approach trying to beat him?
Well, I give them all credit. I mean, I was listening to the list of people. Anybody who runs, people don't understand when you put your name forward, you're under the microscope, every word you say. And those people who are really, if you're an NDP supporter, then the others are all, you will not say positive things about them. So the point I'm making is once you put your name out there, it's out there. And if don't read the blogs, don't read the tweets, because they'll get to you emotionally. You'll take them very personally. So they've got their work cut out, but you got to congratulate them for running.
Well, turning to Niagara Falls, we have incumbent Wayne Gates from the NDP being challenged for a second time by progressive conservative Bart Mabes, a former MPP himself in the riding and a two-time loser against Kim Crater. Clark Bitter is running for the Green Party, Ralph Penicucci for the Libertarians, and Lionel Tupman for the Liberals. So what do we make of this riding?
It'll be a two-person race. Everyone knows that, between Wayne and Bart. Two very good people. Just two different philosophies. Lionel's he's a good. I said to him, we had coffee the other day. I said he reminds me of Clark Kent. If you ever saw him, he reminds me of Clark Kent, Superman. A good kid. He has a bright future ahead of him. And the other person I was really impressed with is Clark Bitter. Clark, for the Green Party, has really put the time and the effort in, has spoken out on issues, and hasn't just put his name forward. And same with the Green Party. You have to give him lots of credit for that as well. So it'll be a two-person race. And it's just this riding, just to tell you, I lived it. So Niagara Falls is the majority, but Niagara-on-the-Lake and Fort Erie can decide the outcome of the election if they both decide to vote for one party collectively. If they split it, then you have a real chance if you get the support out of Niagara Falls. That's how it works.
Okay, let's move over to Welland, where NDP incumbent Cindy Forrester looks strong ahead of PC Frank Campion, a Welland councillor, Benoit Mercier for the Liberals, Donna Cridlin for the Green Party, and Libertarian Andrea Murick. Can anyone beat Forrester in Welland?
Can anyone beat Peter Komos? And Peter was, loved Peter, got along great with him. Peter was fortunate because he had Mel Swartz. And Cindy is fortunate because she had Peter. And Cindy, I was there, so I watched her. Very outspoken, very confident when she spoke on the issues, very passionate. So I'd say no. And the makeup of Welland leans towards NDP. Yeah. They're working, hard-working people there, and so they lean in that direction.
Frank Campion's run a campaign that's really trying to highlight, I guess, things that haven't come to the riding, given that they've had an NDP member since the mid-'70s. Is there anything to that? Do governments kind of look at and shun ridings that aren't held by their members?
Geez. I'd like to think not. I was fortunate to be with the government, but then you also have the courage to say you want something and have the courage to go for it if you don't think if the government says no. It's a challenge when you're in opposition. That's just the reality to go in and ask for things. I've seen some in opposition who develop good relationships with the other parties or other ministers. And when you can do that, when you're not always attacking them and you're attacking them on a very personal level, it's a challenge to walk over to the minister after you've said that they're the worst minister in all of Ontario. They don't care about the public at all, and then say, I need some help. So some of the MPPs in opposition have been able to get their points across, speak on the issues. But then I can do what I've just said to you, gone to the minister and say, I need some help in my riding. And I think it's important for those in opposition to remember they're not just there to go in every day and say, you know, party in power is terrible and we'll do everything to fix it. It's also, how do I help get things for my riding? And I think that's what we need to see a little more of.
And lastly, we go to Niagara West Glanbrook, the home riding of PC leader Tim Hudak and the runaway favorite. He's being challenged by David Mossy of the Liberals, who got into a little social media difficulty early in the campaign, Basha Krzyzanowski of the Green Party, Stefanos Karatopoulos of the Libertarian, and Brian McCormick is carrying the NDP banner. What do we think? Can anybody topple Hudak? How do you run a campaign against a party leader, especially one who the polls say could potentially become premier?
You know, with the greatest respect to all the candidates out there, I mean, Tim is going to win. You know, that's the reality. And again, congratulations to all of them for running. You know, it's strange, I will tell you this. There's this perception about Tim, you know, and I know how people feel. They say, but I knew Tim because I would go over and sit beside him and talk to him, you know, the kids, the family. I mean, I saw sort of a different kind of person, but when you're the leader, that's the reality. You have to apparently conduct yourself a certain way, act a certain way, because you're the leader of a party. But he will, you know, he will be successful.
Yeah, what's been your assessment of his campaign and I guess the Tory campaign in general?
I give them credit because they put out a platform. They could have just attacked, and they did that last time. I said that to you earlier, and that they were criticized for that. So this time he put out a platform. You know, I'm going to deal with the deficit. He put out how I'm going to deal with it. Didn't just say I would deal with it and everything will be okay. But you know, obviously, when you put a platform, then you open the door to people who don't like it that will come after you, and the other parties will come after you too. And so that's what's happened to him this time. He's done the opposite of last time. And we've done the reverse. The Liberals have just attacked, whereas Tim has put out a platform. Last time we put a platform and he just attacked. So that's how politics reverses itself. 1 minute. 1 minute left.
Well, when you're talking about the platform, what did you think of the million jobs plan?
It's a positive platform. I don't know if you can do it. I will tell you something. And this is in all sincerity. I remember when I first got there, first election, and we were criticizing the Conservatives because it was a $5 billion deficit. They found it, and then we changed it. So we have to acknowledge what the deficit is. Oh my God, we have left a deficit that is bigger than all the provinces and the Canadian government. Somebody had said to me, Kim, when you get elected, your legacy will be that you will leave a deficit that's that huge for the province. I'd say that's impossible. And that's what scares me for the province. Forget the politics. I'm worried about what's going to happen to this province with this massive debt. Somebody's going to have to deal with it. And whether Tim's is the right way or not, Kathleen becomes a premier, she's got to deal with this deficit.
Well, we're going to take a short break, so please don't touch that mouse.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
Serving the Niagara Peninsula since 1987, Electronic Depot is your exclusive retailer for all of your audio-video needs. Featuring premium and exclusive brands often sought, Electronic Depot is a brick-and-mortar store offering the surroundings to demonstrate and evaluate the product you desire. We also offer service and installation of all products we sell. Visit us on Facebook or online at theelectronicdepot.ca.
Welcome back, everyone, to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and sponsored this hour by Lancaster, Brooks and Welch in St. Catharines and Welland. We'd like to thank Kim Crater for joining us tonight. One of the issues we here at the St. Catharines Standard, Niagara Falls Review, and Welland Tribune have been bringing into the spotlight is poverty and the plight of the less fortunate members in our community. We've launched a year-long look at the problem in a series called Faces of Poverty, in which we're putting the situation under a microscope and hopefully identifying ways to help solve a serious issue that's important to so many of us and that touches so many aspects of our lives. We invite you to take a look at the stories online, and in the meantime, we'd like to share this short video.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What upsets you? Your
Family is everything. And I feel like I fail my family.
Why?
Because I'm poor.
Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve it, but we all deserve it because he loves us all, right?
I packed for a month, cried every day. And like I said earlier, I know a house is just a house, but it's what it meant.
But our hydro, it runs out so easily just because of medical equipment to keep him alive, right?
You kind of live in a vicious cycle of you're stuck living on a few $100s a month, which is very, very hard, very, very difficult.
I am scared out of my mind that Mrs. Wynne will cut ODSP down to the amounts that Ontario Works is.
If I ever get a job and, and I can make enough money to get off welfare, I'd love that.
Because everybody would make fun of me. Sorry, I got tears. And it's hard because I don't know how to read and I don't know how to spell and everybody makes fun of me. And I don't think that's right.
In order to feed myself, I have to buy secondhand clothing. I have to buy day-old bread. I have to buy food that's just on the cusp of expiring.
And I had to sleep in a room, and there's nothing but fleas everywhere. In the mattress, the blanket you had one blanket. There were no sheets on the mattress back then. You get one blanket and one pillow, and it didn't have a pillowcase even on it, and that's how I had to sleep.
Someone said, you don't look homeless. And I thought, how does that look? What does that look?
That there are people that didn't expect to be in this situation, in it. And it's just like that. It can happen.
Macaroni. It's cheap. 88 cents for a pound. You throw a little spaghetti sauce on. What the heck?
thank God I was able to hang on to things and not have to lose. Sorry. And not lose everything.
What you hear about in school where they say you can follow your dreams type thing, right? But they don't tell you that, you know, they say that you can be this and you can be that, right? But they don't tell you that you can be broke and you can be, you know, owing like 3 different creditors money, and, you know, you can be like having 2 jobs instead of like the one that you want, you know.
No matter, I'm not lazy. I try to work as much as I can, and it still doesn't get me any farther. I'm only one person.
It's just showing gratitude to them about that I'm able to do it. Yes, with assistance, but that's what my life has taught me, that there's no shame in asking for help.
Good evening. I'm Grant LaFleche from the St. Catharines Standard. I'm a reporter and columnist. And joining us right now are 2 women who have had direct experience with poverty in our community. First, to my far left, is Irene Motes. She is one of a growing number of baby boomers in our community, women baby boomers in our community who had to deal with poverty. And Jessica Manuel is beside me, and she had to deal with poverty when she was a teenager here in St. Catharines. She's now the district manager for Mannington Commercial and also a motivational speaker and a member of the local Rotary Club. So thank you both for joining me. And I wonder, just to start really quickly, we'll start with you, Irene, if you could just give us a quick sense of your own situation and where you had to deal with poverty.
Well, I've always worked all of my life. About 5 years ago, I lost my home. I lost my job, and the relationship I was in ended. So I ended up in poverty and basically homeless, and I ended up in a shelter. It's taken me 3 years now to find a home and to be stabilized a bit so that I can move forward in my life.
And you, Jessica, experienced poverty sort of on the opposite end of life as a young girl. Can you give us a quick sense as to what happened to you?
Basically at 14, I had an option to leave home and was placed in 3 youth homes in a matter of 2 years, and planned my way out by utilizing the resources in the local community, and eventually found my way home.
Okay. Irene, you have been watching the election as close as you can over the last 4 weeks. Have you seen poverty come forward as an issue for you, or articulated by the candidates or the party?
I have watched it as closely as I can, but I haven't seen any of the issues that none of the candidates have. Yes, I have watched it as closely as possible, but my voice isn't being heard. The candidates, none of them addressed any of the issues that are important to me. The people that live in poverty and are homeless have they're invisible to the candidates. There's nothing being said when when they speak of hope for the future. It doesn't include us. It doesn't include me.
So what are some of the things that you would like to hear? What are some of the issues that are important?
First of all, housing is the most critical, that there's more housing available, affordable housing for us, food in the budget, and just basically increasing the social allowance every month. The Ontario Works keeps us in poverty. I have never been in the system, and unfortunately I've had to rely on my own resources, and there's just nothing out there until I found community care. It's difficult to put into words how hopeless it looks when you're in a shelter and you can't navigate a system. it's impossible. It was a nightmare.
Now, Jessica, you have talked to me before about how when you don't even know what's out there for you until you find yourself in the situation that the both of you have found yourselves in. So what is that like in terms of that connection between the people who need services and the services that exist?
Well, I guess the main struggle today, and the same for when I was a kid, was the lack of education. I find that the people in need, in order to build a system and in order to help people come out of hopelessness, is to have a proactive system in place where it's voiced. People like Irene, people like myself can go and speak to these people and advise them that there are resources out there to help. And that system's not in place. The system is completely backwards, and we need to be more proactive with our voices.
When we were talking backstage, you said something interesting, which was the election campaign seems to be about candidates in well-dressed suits, and that they're talking about issues that don't touch on what your issues really are. What do you think that someone like yourself, and then we can pass to Irene, what the two of you can do to kind of inform whoever does get elected on what they can do to help people like you?
Well, I think the main thing is that we need to be utilized. The people in the leadership need to rely a little bit more on experience in leadership when it comes to poverty.
What would you say, Irene, to somebody who wins the election? What's the first thing you would say?
Well, tomorrow is when I start to work and advocate and lobby for homelessness and poverty. I voted this morning, but when I go to advocate on behalf of people that are homeless and living in poverty, I want them to see me. I want them to look at me and realize that they have forgotten me in this election. They haven't addressed anything that is important to me. Nothing that my day-to-day living existing has not been addressed by any of them. They haven't come to the food lines. They haven't come to the food banks. I haven't seen them anywhere where I am. There's just...
And I'll put this to both of you because you both are not just sort of sitting on the couch complaining about the system. You both are proactive in your own way. Jessica just spoke to the Ontario Food Banks Association conference, and I know, Irene, you have a women's group that you put together at Community Care. Can you both talk about how you're trying to share your experience and hopefully inform people, and if we're lucky, inform the candidates that win tonight about the issues that those living in poverty face?
Well, I think it's really important that, and I'm so fortunate and so grateful that my voice is used as a tool to help people find hope. And it's extremely important that we, as a community, come together and we help one another bring that gap from education and experience and leadership back to the people that have lived the experience. And when people like Community Care and the Ontario Food Bank Association have me as a speaker, I'm blessed to be able to stand there and be able to be proud of who I am today and basically give a shine of hope for the others that want to be there in the future.
I'm also very fortunate. I've been asked by schools, churches, women's groups. I have a women's group at Community Care, and Community Care has been the backbone for me. They've supported me in all that I do. So I go out and to young people, to anyone that will hear me, bring awareness that this can happen to anyone. We're not immune to poverty. It can happen to you tomorrow, so please do not shut the door and close us out, because we need a voice and we need to be heard, and we will be. I am going to be working from morning till night, which I do now. I go to speak to anyone that I can, and if there's someone out there that needs resources, I can link them towards the resources that they need. and to be proactive. The government needs to be proactive and help us before we fall, because it's much more cost efficient in the end to help us then, because the health system, the crime rate, everything is affected by poverty.
As we're sort of reaching the end of this discussion, I wonder if both of you can talk to me just a little bit about, I mean, if you had your druthers and whoever wins the election in St. Catharines tonight were to come to you and say, where do I need to go? What do I need to see to understand issue of poverty? Where would you direct them to? I mean, where would you, Jessica, take our next MPP to sort of get a first-hand look or a better understanding of the issues of poverty?
Oh, that's a great question, Grant. I mean, it's the important thing to remember is that I'm not going to be able to walk most leaders through poverty, but they can walk with me and be passionate enough to have me be able to walk others through it and to know what the end result is like. So I would love to shake somebody's hand and say, you know what, let's work together. Let's change this community. And we need that in leadership. We need that today because we're falling apart without it.
I wanted each of the leaders to come to the food lines, to the food banks. I want them to see someone living in poverty, living a day-to-day existence. It's important that that we are not invisible, and they need to stand where we stand. I have been greatly disappointed in the fact that I have been at outreach programs that have fed 500 people in one night, and I don't see any politicians there. There's people hungry. People are the most valuable asset this country has, and they're forgotten. And I need that to be addressed in the next 4 years.
We, on our front page today, in fact, we were talking about the issue of affordable housing, which I know that you touched on. And I would encourage anybody watching tonight to take a look at those stories on the St. Catharines Standard website and in our hard copy newspaper. And as we reach the end here, can you both very quickly talk about how did you cope with the issue of housing when you were homeless yourselves, whether it was in terms of youth center or being on a waiting list to find somewhere to live?
Like I mentioned before, I was pretty much dropped into the system, and given people, I was blessed to have people in counseling and people in leadership around me to walk me through. But back in that day, I mean, you needed those people because there was no way of finding housing on your own, and the system's not easy. So, but you know, with the right leadership and with the right counseling, we were able to do it.
I was in a shelter, and I lived, my apartments were market value apartments until I actually found community care on my own. So since then I've had an affordable apartment, so I don't have to live in abject poverty. But it's essential that there is more housing out there, and the waiting list isn't 13 years. Because in 13 years, a lot can change.
All right, thank you very much, Irene and Jessica. Very glad the two of you can join us today. And please remember to go to the Standard website to look at our ongoing series on the faces of poverty. And we're going to come back after a short break.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce is Niagara's largest business organization with over 1,500 members representing 45,000 employees. With a dedicated advocacy team, the Chamber works hard to keep the cost of doing business in Niagara competitive and help businesses grow. Gain access to benefits like low rates for members and their employees from Virgin Insurance and gas savings with Gales Gas, as well as the Chamber Group Insurance Program. Stay connected with us.
Well, welcome back everyone to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and sponsored this hour by Lancaster, Brooks and Welch in St. Catharines and Welland. Remember, you can email questions to Dawn Fraser at dawn.fraser@sunmedia.ca, tweet them to us on any of the daily newspapers using the hashtag Niagara Votes, or post them on Facebook. We have reporters throughout Niagara tonight covering the candidates, and right now we're going to check in with Rob Houle of the St. Catharines Standard. Rob's in St. Catharines tonight. Rob, can you tell us what the scene is like where you are?
I can't. Cisco supporters, excuse me, two mats at City Council last month, where the supporters of Matt Cisco are going to gather after the polls close. I'm here with campaign manager Trevor Harris. Trevor, I'm just wondering if the fact that Matt was in place as the candidate for the Conservative Party well in advance of the election call, if that's an indication that the party really truly believes that this is a winnable riding, considering that the incumbent has held the riding for 36 plus years.
Well, I think if you look at the results in 2007, when Sandy Bellows ran, it was actually a really close race, one of the closer races we've seen in St. Catharines since Jim Bradley was elected 37 years ago. So having Matt in place for the better part of, frankly, a year and a half was actually really beneficial to the party and to Matt locally. We've had the opportunity to bang on virtually every door in the city over the course of that time and generate a fair bit of support.
Okay, good. Now that the campaign has come to a close, how did it go? Is there anything differently that you would have done?
Yeah, it's a conversation we've had amongst the campaign group for the last couple of days, actually, and we're really happy with how the campaign. We think we have the opportunity to point out what we think are some of the flaws of the last 10 years of government and the role of the local candidate in some of those scandals and corruption issues, whatever else. And Jim Bradley's a nice guy. Everybody believes he's a nice guy, but the fact of the matter is, after 37 years and 10 years in government recently, we just think it's time for a change. So we think we've offered a really positive view of what the vision of St. Catharines should be, and Matt's been out there pounding the streets talking about his solution for St. Catharines and how to move the city forward.
Was that something that came up quite a bit in the campaign, on the campaign trail, seeing that people were disgruntled, not necessarily with Jim, but disgruntled with the so-called scandals from the Liberal Party?
I think that's been a dominant theme in the election. Really, it's unfortunate for somebody like Jim Bradley, who's had a pretty stellar 37-year career in Parliament, to be overshadowed by some of those scandals that have taken place within the broader Liberal Party. Certainly, the Premier's been dodged by those questions for the entire campaign. Yeah, and unfortunately for Jim, he's had the seat next to the Premier for a good chunk of the last term of government. So it's something we did here, but frankly, we've been focused on not just dwelling on those issues. Matt's been really focused on talking about his solutions for the city, of creating jobs, making a more livable community, and really taking St. Catharines' issues to Queen's Park.
Okay, thank you very much. It's campaign manager Trevor Harris, campaign manager for Matt Cisco. Back to you at the Standard office, Karina.
Well, thanks, Rob. With us now is Mayor April Jeffs of the Township of Wainfleet, the smallest municipality in our region, but one that's seen its share of controversy. Welcome, April. We'd like to talk to you about two issues, windmills and healthcare.
Well, April, thanks for joining us tonight. The Liberal government's invested a lot of time and money into green energy and developing wind farms across the province. Obviously, this had a pretty direct impact on Wainfleet. Can you tell us a little bit about Wainfleet's position on wind farms and your thought on them?
Okay, well, first I'd like to say thanks for having me here tonight. Yeah, if I can kind of take us back at the start of the term in 2011, right at the beginning in January, we found out we were going to have a wind turbine project and that it was going to directly impact our local skydive business. And from there, kind of the word spread and residents came out slowly at first, but then it gained a lot of momentum with their opposition toward wind turbines. So the first step was to join the moratorium, which called for further health studies. We did that, I believe, in March of 2011. And then from there, we were encouraged to pass a 2-kilometer setback which we did, which was challenged in court, and we were unsuccessful, but the judge didn't rule it as invalid, so it was a victory. And then further to that, now Skydive Burnaby has kind of taken the lead on this, and we just found out recently that they have had an injunction. So first they had a stay and they had an environmental review tribunal hearing, and they were unsuccessful, but then they did press further, and now they have this injunction, and I believe that halts any further construction until August. Now some people would say, well, the turbines are already up, but the transmission lines and the different things that go with it haven't been completed yet. So as I understand it, I'd hoped to speak to their lawyer before I came on today, but that has all been halted until a court case in August. So the township's position is still that we don't support them. We're not anti-green energy, but we feel that these were forced on the municipalities. We had no say. There was not even, I don't think our residents would have been happy if there was any kind of tax break or a hydro break regardless, but there wasn't even that option for us. So
really quick, I guess, before we move over to the healthcare, what kind of impact do turbines have on a community?
Well, we're going to have to see, as time rolls out. That's the big controversial issue. A lot of people have said that it's the NIMBY syndrome, that there aren't going to be direct health impacts, that it's not going to devalue property, but we are seeing that and we are hearing that from other rural municipalities.
Of course, you've also been front and center on the healthcare debate, both as a politician and a mother. You are concerned that the Niagara health system is closing hospitals in Welland and Port Colborne, and you experienced firsthand a prolonged wait for emergency orthopedic surgery for your son, which you and I talked about.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Well, he broke his leg, I guess it was May 21st, and he was with my neighbor at a baseball game, so she drove him to the Port Colborne Urgent Care, which we knew if he had to have anything major, he wouldn't be able to stay there. So they did an x-ray, and then they transported him to St. Catharines, and I had asked why, and they said, well, he's still considered pediatric, so he needs to go to St. Catharines. Welland won't do the surgery. So we arrived at the St. Catharines emergency, I think around 9:30 that night, and it was busy, and he wasn't seen until about midnight. And that was okay. He was supposed to have been splinted, and he wasn't, so I know there was a little bit of a discrepancy there. And then we waited, I guess that was a Wednesday night, so he didn't go in for any surgery until the Friday morning, so it was about 36 hours. And at one point on the Thursday, the attending doctor had come in, and I was under the impression he would go in the afternoon, and he said, oh no, it won't be until the next day because they were so busy. And since then, I've had some faculty in the area reach out to me and have said that in Welland they can do that surgery. I think it's 5 and under that they won't, and they will do surgery if they can. I guess they don't have to. If they don't have to keep the children overnight, or they can transport them elsewhere. So, without getting into a lengthy, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and give me a lot of information, and without getting into lengthy, I think there are still a lot of issues that need to be resolved. There's a lot of bouncing between these different hospitals, from what I'm gathering, and then patients are suffering for it.
Do you think that the NHS should maintain its current roster of hospitals?
I do. I think there's a way. I mean, I understand what they're saying about retrofitting any of the older hospitals is going to be, over $1 billion, and it's more cost effective to build the new hospital. But for us, and I'll speak strictly from Wainfleet, it's the distance. Like for me to go to the St. Catharines Hospital was it's almost 45 minutes. Plus I have 2 sets of train tracks to navigate. And then to go to the proposed new site for the South Niagara Hospital is again about 40 minutes, depending on where you're going. So what I'm hearing from residents is the concern for maternity, and also the concern for any kind of acute patient care. And so then we're told, well, you can go to Dunnville, or if it was really bad, they'll airlift somebody. But I mean, that's not the point. We still want to have our emergency close by. I think it's a matter of fairness for the South Niagara residents.
And we just had a question from a viewer for you. They've said, why keep fighting for a hospital when it seems set for Niagara Falls?
Because I honestly don't think you should ever give up. And I think we've kind of proved that in Wainfleet. We don't tend to want to let things go. But I still think a lot of people question whether this hospital, I know there has been funding dedicated to it, but I still think a lot of people question whether the hospital is going to go through with the government and the state that it's in, and if it's actually going to go there. So I think until it's over, we need to still band together as a community.
I guess the question is cost. How would we be able to pay to keep all of the hospitals open and have a South Niagara hospital?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying the big Niagara hospital, and I think that's where some of the provincial politicians are saying, well, we should have the big state-of-the-art hospital, but we should keep the other ones open, and I don't know if that's feasible. And that's where I still think, and there again, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think there is a way to retrofit these hospitals. I question, and I always have, the cost that they said to retrofit these. And I know we talk about infectious diseases and being able to keep them under control, and that there's absolutely no way, but that is something that I still question.
Since it is the provincial election tonight, do you think a PC or an NDP government would hear you and maybe change their policy?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think really if you make enough noise, any government is going to listen eventually. And going back to the Green Energy Act, we do think that a lot of the noise we made in collaboration with other rural municipalities, that we did get their attention, and they did make changes to the Green Energy Act, not strong enough for us in Wainfleet or a lot of the other rural municipalities, but they did pull back, and they did change it to a certain extent. So I do think that if you push enough, and other people disagree. A lot of people are really disillusioned right now, and I understand that, but I think if you have a community behind you, that you can make some headway.
Have you been hearing from a lot of residents since you came out and told your story about your son?
I did. I had residents reach out to me from all across Niagara. I had a lot of emails. I had several phone calls. So it's been interesting to hear. People are really upset. They're really concerned about where our healthcare is going. I think across Ontario, but specifically here in Niagara.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us,
April.
April.
Thank you for having me.
We invited the Niagara Health System to take part in this discussion, but they declined. Now we're a few minutes away from the polls closing, so we're going to go to Grimsby with Ray Spiteri from the Niagara Falls Review. He's covering Tim Hudak tonight, the man who hopes to be premier by the time the evening's over. Ray, what's the mood like there so far?
Election night headquarters at the Mountain Ridge Community Center in Grimsby. The number of supporters here, they're starting to file in now. They're almost matching the number of media that are here from across Ontario and from across Canada as well. The mood seems to be one of cautious optimism. There's little doubt that Mr. Hudak will take this riding of Niagara West Glanbrook, but all eyes are sort of on the provincial race across Ontario, where the Fort Erie native hopes to become the next premier of Ontario. All pre-election polls seem to show that this is a tight race across the province. Mr. Hudak hopes to become the first premier from the Niagara region, but the polls show that it's really, really tight. Back to you in the studio, Karina.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
talking about the NBA Finals.
Welcome back, everyone, to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie and sponsored this hour by Lancaster, Brooks and Welch in St. Catharines and Welland. The polls are now closed, and in a short time we'll have some results coming in. Stay with us, and we'll bring you those as soon as they become available. Now with us is longtime Standard columnist Doug Harrod. Doug, tell us who's going to win tonight.
San Jose Sharks, all the way to the cup. Oh, right, that was my playoff hockey pool forecast. I got to adjust.
We don't want to go there.
You know, I always found that it's always better to wait when the results, and you always sound so much more intelligent, like you know what you're talking about when you can analyze the actual results. You know, when you try and forecast, you run the risk of being quite foolish. But fortunately, I'm used to that, so I'm prepared to make my predictions. I don't see many upsets, you know. Bradley's like the heavyweight champ in St. Catharines, and I always said he was only going to be vulnerable if there was a real Tory tide rolling through, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's hard to imagine Cindy Forster losing in Welland. Welland, for whatever reason, has just become a steadfast NDP base, and I'm not sure why. You think you might want to give the government MPs a chance to see if they can actually get some of the things going there, considering they seem to be in a permanent state of woe. And obviously Tim Hudak, I think, is the favorite in Niagara West Glanbrook, or is it Glanbrook West Niagara? I don't know. And I think the real interesting one is Niagara Falls with Maves and Wayne Gates. And to me, that's kind of like the bellwether riding here. I just can't imagine the Conservatives being able to form a government if they can't take Niagara Falls.
Yeah, we've talked a bit here tonight about the nature of this campaign and how it's rolled out over the past 6 weeks. It's been a long campaign. What's been your assessment of the I guess, each party strategy and how they've approached trying to win everybody's votes?
Well, I think it's interesting, you know, with the like, I don't think there's particularly locally. I don't know if there's a lot of necessarily issues out there, and you know, and certainly in St. Catharines, you know, everybody talks about the GO train, but you know, it's like a motherhood and apple pie issue. I think provincially, you know, the Conservatives and the Liberals have certainly staked out their ground. I mean, man, I mean, the Tories are running hard on this whole very right of centre platform in terms of the cuts they want to make and the hard line they're taking on the public service, and you know, the Liberals are gone left of centre. So there's a real choice there. And where the NDP fits in, I don't know. They're sort of in between, aren't they? They're sort of going, you know, trying to retain their some of their left-wing elements, but they're also trying to be a populist, I wouldn't say right-wing, but very populist as well. So I don't know if they've been able to carve out an identity, a clear identity like the other two have. And I think the danger for the NDP is if the Liberal strategy of trying to say, like, we're the ones that can keep the wolf at the door, the wolf being the Tories, and that sort of left of center support may coalesce around them rather than the NDP, and that has the chance of really marginalizing the NDP and hurting them. So,
yeah, we've seen quite a bit in this campaign, or we're starting to hear, anyways, more and more about people declining their ballots. Yeah. I've seen some stuff on Twitter this morning where folks were saying they're hearing quite a few people at the different polling stations saying, you know, thanks but no thanks. What kind of impact's that going to have on the results? I mean, you can't expect there's going to be a big voter turnout.
Declining the ballot, that's like voting communist, right? Or libertarian, is that how that works? As a form of protest? You know, I guess, and you hear this, that if the lower the voter turnout is, the more important it is that you get all of a sudden, you get your core support out there, you stand a greater chance of succeeding, because, you know, if there's only 50% of the people going out to vote, if for example the Conservatives get all their supporters out, and even if it's only like 30 to 35%, that has a greater weight if the fewer voters are out there, and that's something to look forward to. Although I don't know, what's your thinking with 50%? Well, we're not going to.
No. I'm predicting kind of low to mid 40s.
Yeah,
and To be honest, I mean, I look at that. That's probably to the advantage of the Tories more than the other parties. They seem to have the more motivated and activated base.
And that's what they've been talking about. You know, why? You know, some people say, why are the Conservatives having such a hard platform? Because the word is, they're trying to appeal to their core, excite their core, get their core to make sure they get out and vote. And so, yeah, I would think that would be to their advantage, particularly if some normal liberal supporters are dismayed with the Liberal record. They might just say, you know what.
And that's kind of the thing I'm going to be looking at tonight when the results come in is those Liberal numbers compared to past elections.
Yeah.
Especially here in Niagara, we've really seen Liberal votes evaporate federally.
Yeah.
Their support has collapsed in all 4 ridings around Niagara. To be curious to see what impact. I mean, we saw it even in Niagara Falls in February.
I was astonished in the by-election in Niagara Falls in February. The Liberals, who used to be the party in Niagara Falls, to see it collapse the way it did, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they secured less than 20% of the vote, and I'll be shocked if they get there again this time.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne Gates has been saying to anybody who will listen that it's a 2-party race, and he's bang on, I think, on that assessment.
It's amazing when you think about it, right? Like, used to be municipal elections, if it was a good mayor's race, you get 40 to low 40% turnout. Now, there's a chance a provincial election may not get that kind of turnout with all the publicity and the promotion that these things do.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with people who don't vote are often labeled as apathetic, but it seems like with this election in particular, and Kim Crater touched on this too, people just don't really know who to vote for.
Oh, I agree. And I think, and I'd be curious, because I think with the Liberals, I think there probably are a lot of disaffected Liberals who are disappointed in, the way the McGuinty the last election and the policy, the information has come out since then about, obviously the gas plants and other scandals, as it were, and they just are having a difficult time saying, what, we've got to vote these guys in again. But then they look at the alternatives and they're not pleased with it. So yeah, they just may, well, I'll just show my distaste by not voting. Period. So it'll be curious to see.
I guess sticking with the voter turnout, I don't know if there's any solutions to turn around. I mean, the way politics is shaping up lately, there's some pretty strident partisanship at play. We're seeing a lot of negative attack ads. I think that's really turning off people, and I really don't know how to get the next generation of voters engaged.
Yeah. And another thing, I know people saw the leadership debate that was held. Again, it was so much bickering and talking over and not really listening to each other. I didn't think that was particularly stimulating. That would get people excited about the election and what the parties were trying to say. And you add it all up, and I think there's this feeling too that it's not the old story, but it's not going to make a difference. So why bother voting? It's really sad the way it's going.
Well, now we're going to go to Alan Benner from the Welland Tribune. Alan is watching the race between NDP incumbent Cindy Forrester and PC challenger Frank Campion in Welland. Alan, the polls are closed, and obviously it's quite early, but what's happening there?
Thanks, Karina. The excitement is starting to build here at the CAW Hall at Welland, where incumbent Cindy Forrester is holding her election night bash. Forrester is expected to come down here about 9:30 p.m. It could really be a close race in the Welland riding, certainly compared to some of the runaway victories the NDP has enjoyed in the past. The NDP has held the riding since 1975, when long-time progressive conservative MPP Ellis Morningstar retired. Mel Swart defeated Conservative Alan Pitts in the election that year, and the riding has remained an NDP stronghold for nearly 39 years since. But this time around, the PCs have put forward a rather strong candidate in Frank Campion, the 57-year-old outspoken Welland City Councillor in Ward 2. Forrester and Campion were actually allies, working together on efforts to preserve Welland Hospital services right up until the election call. But considering some of the mudslinging that's gone on during the election, it's going to be interesting to see if they'll be able to work together in the future on the same projects. In the 2011 provincial election, the PC candidate finished with nearly 5,500 fewer votes than Forrester, and we'll learn later tonight if Campion can improve on that record. Back to you at the studio, Karina.
Now we're going to check in with St. Catharines Standard columnist Grant LaFleche, who's wandering around our studio and newsroom this evening. Grant, you talked to a lot of the candidates during the campaign and a lot of the party leaders. What are you expecting to see tonight?
All right.
Thanks, Karina. Well, in terms of what I'm expecting to see tonight, it's really too close to call. You would have thought when the campaign started the Liberals would be so weak, they're so scandal-plagued, that it would be an easy ride for the Tories in particular. But as you've seen in the polls in the last few days, it's extremely tight. So it's going to be a very tight race, and it could be one of those campaigns or one of those elections that we don't actually see the result until late tonight. So we're just going to talk to some of our guests really quickly who are hiding in our boardroom, in our makeshift green room. How's everybody doing tonight? Great. So come on in. Nick is our cameraman, by the way. He's to us from Humber College, isn't it, Nick? So we're going to start with Sandy Annunziato, who you may remember from his days in the CFL, also a former Fort Erie councillor, Tory supporter, as I recall. So what are you expecting? The polls have been so tight coming into tonight. How do you see things shaking out tonight?
Well, I wish there was going to be a clear-cut winner, but I think each party has held the other to account. So in that sense, I'm predicting probably a minority victory. Which way it's going to go, I think it's too close to call. But I'll tell you one thing that's really disappointed me about all three candidates and all three campaigns is just the negative campaigning that's gone on and the sound biting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there from all three major parties, and it's unfortunate because I think it's a disservice to the electorate.
Right. Thank you, Sandy. Also in the room tonight with us is St. Catharines Mayor Brian McMullen. This will be your last provincial election, presumably with sitting at the helm of the City Hall. What are you expecting to shake out tonight?
Similar to Sandy's comments, Grant, I'm not really expecting any change, at least locally, is sort of my prediction. And provincially, I think it's a tough race. I agree about the negative campaigning. I'd rather vote for something rather than against something. But if I had to put money down, I'd be saying Liberal minority, even after all these days of campaigning.
Okay. And finally, we have also a guest for later on tonight, Gary Burrows, Chair of the Region. What are you expecting tonight?
Well, I think, as has been said by both Sandy and Brian, 3 of the 4 races, I think, in Niagara will be extremely close. Too close to call, although we'll be calling it very shortly. And I think for all of us, the job for the residents of Niagara starts tomorrow. Whoever the government is, we need to start touching base and getting action for Niagara.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we're walking. We're going backwards now out in the hallway. Hopefully nobody carrying the camera will fall down. Feel like an auctioneer on the microphone tonight. So we're going to do a quick check-in in our results room over here. This is usually managing editor Erica Bayer's office. Marianne. So what do we got so far in terms of results? Have we seen anything?
As of right now, the results have not started to roll in yet for any of Niagara's ridings. This is going to be the hot spot of the night, though. We are expecting quite a few close races tonight. But as of right now, we've got nothing going.
And just to recap for our viewers, give me a sense as to some of the tight races that we're going to see tonight.
Well, we're looking in Welland. We're looking at Frank Campion and Cindy Forrester. We're expecting to see quite a tight race there, as well as in St. Catharines with Jim Bradley and Matt Sisko. And of course, when it comes to Niagara Falls with Wayne Gates and Bart Mabes.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're walking, going backwards again. You guys can only see what's going on behind the camera. We're going to check in with reporter Don Fraser, who's been watching our social media tonight. And he's kind of trying to get a sense as to what regular voters are saying, what party partisans might be saying online. Donald, how are we doing this evening?
I tweeted out a comment. I wanted to know what people thought, if people thought that choosing the candidate was difficult this time around. And in Twitter, I'm getting a lot of replies saying basically, yes, they found this election to be particularly difficult in pinning down their choice. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm in voting. Just a wee bit of trouble deciding who I wanted to put my ex over, says one Twitter person. everyone had a hard time picking, says another. Another one, a couple of them are fairly off color. So seem to have a sense that really this isn't exactly an enthusiastic vote this time around. That's the general feeling that I'm getting, that there doesn't seem to be a ton of love for any of the candidates or for the political parties per se, even more so than anything else I've covered in about 15 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Don. And that's it for now from the St. Catharines Standard newsroom, and we'll throw back to our election desk.
Well, thank you, Grant. During this campaign, the topic of daily GO service, train service to Niagara has been discussed quite a bit, and we have this video report for you.
GO train is absolutely essential to the economy of the Niagara region. The Golden Horseshoe has been developing, and it seems to go just as far as the GO line goes. And if you go up 10,000 feet and you take a look at the bigger picture, you'll realize right now, as we sit here, they're building light rapid transit connecting Pearson International to Union Station. We've got GO train coming around to Hamilton. At the same time, they're starting to build a high-speed rail station in Niagara Falls, New York, that will link New York City with high-speed rail. We are right in the middle of all of this. This GO train commuter line will act as an umbilical cord into the GTA. It'll draw all sorts of jobs this way, and the advantage we have here is people that are currently renting in Toronto can have the pride of ownership and build equity into their futures by owning a house, having a yard, the quality of life that we experience down here, unparalleled anywhere in the province.
Look, I'm a Niagara MPP. I'd love to see it, but we got to get first things first. We have some pretty tough choices. When you're deep in a hole, you got to balance the books, and you also have to get the economy going. I mean, that's why my big plan, right up there, the Million Jobs Plan, we'll get people in Niagara working again. And then when they are good, steady jobs and paying steady taxes, that's consequence of a good job. Then we have the funds to invest in our transportation system like that. Look, what I like to see for my constituents, as a Niagara MPP, of course I would. No doubt about it. But I've got to put first things first. And that means putting people back to work in Niagara through affordable hydro, lower taxes, less debt, and then we'll have the funds to invest in things that we care about.
We're committed. Look, I'm from Hamilton. I know the difference between getting 1 or 2 trains in the morning and 1 or 2 trains in the afternoon and having much more robust service. It makes a big, big difference, and I know that that'll make a big difference for this community. So we're committed to all year round, all day GO service here in Niagara.
Well, with us now we have the Mayor of St. Catharines, Brian McMullen. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Kenny.
Why is GO train so important for St. Catharines and Niagara?
Well, for a couple of reasons. We've talked about the changing economy both here in Niagara but in Southern Ontario, and we know that in terms of the manufacturing base here in the region, the jobs have changed. The type of jobs that we have shifted, and it's about connectivity. It's about access to market. In this case, the market largely is the GTA for many professions. We find that a lot of families, they want to live here for quality of life, affordability, but one spouse may work here in St. Catharines or the Niagara region, the other spouse works in the GTA. And if they could choose to live anywhere, they want to live here, but need access to be able to work. And a 2-hour commute each way, sort of white-knuckling it, is really not an option for a lot of families.
I'm curious, Brian, I think there's a general expectation that GO train service is going to be coming to Niagara. It's just a question of when. And that is really the, I don't know what it is, the $200 million question? What sense do you get as to how soon we are away? And I'm assuming it would probably start with just a couple of runs in the morning, a couple of runs back from Toronto in the afternoon. But what kind of sense do you get as to the timing of it?
I have a sense, Doug, that it's actually really close. We're close to a decision. We were close before the election. The writ was dropped. You know, I've heard different scenarios, a couple trains in the morning, a couple trains in the afternoon, which means afternoon, early evening, replacing some of the GO buses that exist today. And you know, 2015 would be a push, but if not by 2015, I would say I'm optimistic that for sure by 2016.
Now, do you think it'd be a phased-in situation where it might come to Grimsby first, and then sometime later it comes to St. Catharines, sometime later it comes to Niagara Falls? Again, what are you hearing about that?
I'm smiling, Doug, because my phasing in is coming to St. Catharines. That's the first phase, but no, I think it'll be Grimsby, St. Catharines as a first phase. I'm not saying that St. Catharines would maybe be not a couple months behind Grimsby. And again, what I've been supporting all along is St. Catharines, Grimsby, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. I think being that it is Niagara Falls and kind of that tourist center. You know, they have the third highest number of hotel rooms in Canada. It's a major tourist destination. I think it makes sense it goes to Niagara Falls. And so if there was any kind of phasing in, I would hope it would be very, very short and very tight.
And we talked about this recently about, you know, okay, the province or Metrolinx would be doing this, rolling this out for Niagara, the GO train. But I get the impression that, and we had talked about this, there's some pressure on the region as well to have bus connections within the region, so people from Welland can get to the GO station, whether it's in St. Catharines or, you know, Fort Erie, they can get to the one in Niagara Falls. Is there that sort of pressure on the region to step up its public transit game as well?
For sure, Doug. Pressure, but I would say even in its fair expectation that I think the province is saying it's happened in Kitchener-Waterloo, it's happened in Barrie, it's happened in other jurisdictions. If we're going to have 3 GO stops, assuming Grimsby, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, we, the region, have a responsibility to help people get there, and I think that's a fair expectation. And so we now have regional transit for the first time ever. I think it's going well, and hopefully ridership will continue to build. But I don't think we'll get GO without doing our part, and at least right now we've shown signs that we're prepared to do our part.
Why have we had to wait so long? Like, is the canal really an issue here, or what is the holdup?
Yeah, Corinne, I would say it's not, actually. I think that was a bit of a misnomer. I mean, the billion-dollar tunnel, as we all know of, I don't think, not only is it not going to happen, but we don't need it. So there's been some very serious talks with the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority, and you know, by some slight adjustment of the trains, maybe on what we call the Niagara Falls side of the canal, I don't think it's a major issue, and I think we can accommodate whatever impact the canal has when the bridge is up. So it's a misnomer. I think we've had enough studies done that we can, it's a 5 or 10 minute delay on the Niagara Falls side that can be accommodated, and this notion that we have to build a billion-dollar tunnel is just not only not going to happen, but it's not necessary.
Well, with the provincial election on, obviously we're going to have an MPP in St. Catharines elected, and Jim Bradley been the one forever, but just curious from a mayor's perspective, what sort of working relationship do you have with an MPP, and what sort of are you looking for in that kind of relationship with Queen's Park, and what role does the MPP play in that?
It's actually a very important relationship, but I've always said one benefit of being mayor is it's a nonpartisan position. I work with Rick Dykstra, who's a Conservative, I work with Jim Bradley, who's, as we know, is a Liberal, but probably because what I call we're a creature of the province. Virtually all of our powers, all of our authority come from the province of Ontario. So given that fact, the relationship between a mayor and a municipal council and your MPP is critically important. I've been fortunate, and again, it hasn't been about party, but I've been able to work with who's ever there for my whole time as mayor. It's been Jim Bradley. We've had a great working relationship, and I think we've seen some results for St. Catharines, the hospital, the Performing Arts Center, the Meridian Center, etc. We've seen real results.
Do you, from the municipality's perspective, does it matter when you look at the party platforms in this election which party gets elected, or is it made more difficult if it's a minority government? Have you noticed a change in that sense, or?
It takes a little bit longer sometimes to make decisions when it's a minority government. I think in terms of party and power, you know, not a huge difference other than that on the GO issue. The platforms have been slightly different. 2 parties kind of align on that GO would be coming to Niagara fairly soon. 1 party does not align on that issue. But you know, I think hopefully whoever's elected are going to take into account the needs of St. Catharines and Niagara, and I call them investments. We're looking at being partners, but oftentimes we feel we've been ignored a little bit. I think that's not the case now, but we want to continue to push our issues, which I think are important. We're part of the Ontario economy, and I think it's just a good investment to recognize that and to make sure when we talk about GTA, we talk about Metrolinx, that St. Catharines and Niagara are included in those conversations.
Well, we've talked about GO Train here. That seems to be the most high-profile issue in this election locally. Are there some other issues, outstanding issues, that you would like to see addressed as the mayor of St. Catharines that the province would play a role in?
There are a few. I mean, we talk about, you know, the area's been hard hit in terms of the economy. We're seeing some signs the economy's coming back, but simple things but important things like affordable housing. When you talk about an individual in terms of stability within their family, one of those basics is a roof over your head. And we talk often that one of the stats is Hamilton receives 4 times as many dollars, some of it's federal and provincial funding, 4 times the funding that the Niagara region receives, because they look at St. Catharines as being the urban center and ignore kind of the rest of the region. And so there's a few issues in terms of infrastructure. It will be an ongoing issue. GO we've talked about, but also I think one of the hot button issues right now is addressing poverty, and one of those basic issues is affordable housing.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we can just shift gears slightly, obviously there's a municipal election going on this fall, October 27th, is it?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you've announced that you will not be running again. And I know you're not necessarily out there supporting someone, but Jeff Birch is running, and he's a councillor along with Peter Secor, but certainly Jeff has been somebody you've worked with over the years. I'm just curious, have you actively come out in support of him, or are you kind of staying
No, I
above
haven't
the fray?
actively supported anyone at this point. Those that have approached me for either advice or just to talk about some of the issues, I've been happy to, and including a few people running for city council for some of the different wards. Jeff and I are friends. I think Jeff has been a strong city councillor. Where Jeff and I have worked very closely together is this last budget cycle, but also on the Meridian Center, where Jeff has been, along with myself, as council's lead. So we've developed a great working relationship, and I just want what's best for the city at the end of the day, and know that the voters will make that decision.
Do you see at some point that, I know it's awfully early in the campaign, do you see yourself at some point coming out publicly for any of the candidates, or are you sort of taking the position now that you sort of course, that might be the kiss of death for all we know, right?
Who knows, Doug, right? Yeah, thanks. I haven't really thought that far ahead. It's probably a bit early, but they say in politics, never say never, but I haven't made that decision yet one way or the other.
Okay.
I think we have about a minute left. Who would you like to see as the next premier?
That's I want a premier.
You thought I put you on the spot.
I want a premier that recognizes Niagara issues, whoever it is. And so we were saying the work starts tomorrow. We're going to be out there pushing Niagara issues, and St. Catharines issues, whoever is premier in the morning, and we'll work with whoever the public chooses.
See why he's a successful politician. That was the beautiful non-answer to the question of who you want as the next premier, but that's fine.
Well, thanks for this, Brian. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce is Niagara's largest business organization with over 1,500 members representing 45,000 employees. With a dedicated advocacy team, the Chamber works hard to keep the cost of doing business in Niagara competitive and help businesses grow. Gain access to benefits like low rates for members and their employees from Virgin Insurance and gas savings with Gales Gas, as well as the Chamber Group Insurance Program. Stay connected with us.
3, 2, 1.
Well, welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and sponsored this hour by Lancaster, Brooks & Welch and St. Catharines and Welland. The polls are closed, and we're checking results, which we'll bring to you as soon as we have them. Right now we have a video from Niagara Falls Review reporter Ray Spiteri, who looks at all 4 Niagara ridings.
All 4 ridings in Niagara have their own unique needs and asks, but there are 3 in particular that are key. One is the need for GO train service regular year-round in Niagara. It's something politicians, local businesses, and post-secondary institutions have been proposing to the provincial government. Another is for the preservation of local healthcare services, particularly the building of a new South Niagara Hospital on the outskirts of Niagara Falls to serve the southern portion of Niagara. The third issue is poverty, and specifically trying to get candidates to explain what they would do to tackle poverty in a riding that has one of the highest unemployment rates across Canada. In the Niagara Falls riding, incumbent NDP MPP Wayne Gates will try and hold on to the seat he won just 4 months ago during a by-election. Building a South Niagara Hospital on the outskirts of Niagara Falls securing the long-term future of the Fort Erie racetrack, which has been in question for a number of years, and bringing daily GO train service to the area are key issues all the candidates have discussed in the riding during the campaign. In the St. Catharines riding, incumbent Liberal MPP Jim Bradley will look to keep his amazing streak of 37 years at Queen's Park alive. Like the Niagara Falls riding, seeking commitment from candidates to bring regular GO train service to the area is a priority. Many pundits believe this riding could be closer than some might expect. In Niagara West Glanbrook, few, if any, predict Ontario PC leader Tim Hudak will be defeated in his own riding. The real question is whether his party can win enough seats across the province to form government. The mixed urban and rural area, which runs from Lake Ontario to the Welland River, encompasses several communities and is known for the Niagara Escarpment and Greenbelt, wineries, fruit-growing operations, farms, and beaches. In the Welland riding, incumbent NDP MPP Cindy Forrester is seeking a second term in provincial office. One issue of importance in this riding is preserving local healthcare services, including the long-term future of Welland County General Hospital, which is recommended to be closed by the Niagara Health System in favor of one hospital to cover South Niagara.
Well, thanks for that, Ray. We're now going to go visit with Tony Risciuto of the Niagara Falls Review. He is in the Niagara Falls riding at the Wayne Gates campaign. Tony, what are you seeing there?
This is Tony Risciuto from the Niagara Falls Review, reporting from the Wayne Gates campaign. We are at the Marriott Hotel in Niagara Falls. I'm with campaign worker Frank DeLuca. Frank, we saw the first 3 polls come in. How do you feel?
Very positive. We're looking forward to seeing results with the whole polls, and it's going to be a tight race. And we've worked hard during the election, and because of our hard work, that we get some positive results.
My election was only 4 months ago. This time around, then
no, we did the same thing. We took the high road in regards to taking a positive outlook on the election, and come out of it with a lot of workers who, young workers who have come, and we've had a very good time during our process.
Thank you very much. Now back to the desk in St. Catharines.
Okay, with us now is Sandy Annunziata, a Fort Erie businessman and a former town councillor who at one time had his eye on running for the Progressive Conservatives in the Niagara Falls riding. Sandy, we know, I think, where your loyalties lie in this election, but we wanted to ask you this anyway. The town's been hammered lately. The Fort Erie track continues to hang on just barely. The government took the slots away. Numerous businesses have closed. The hospital's been shut. Are the Liberals even a factor in Fort Erie?
Well, I'm a supporter of good governance, and certainly in the past I've always been a Tim Hudak Tory supporter, but I'd like to think that every household has a story to tell, and the ballot that we cast should tell that story. So I know from personal experiences and from what is impacting the town of Fort Erie, we have some challenges, and I know that all 3 major parties have put forward a plan to alleviate some of those concerns. But at the end of the day, I think it's all about who has the most honest and most effective plan. And I always like to think that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you start climbing up. And I think Fort Erie has done that. So when we look at the 3 major parties in play this evening and who's going to be representing Fort Erie interests at Queen's Park, what I've tried to look at is who has an honest plan, who has a plan that is going to be effective. And at this point, I think between all 3 parties, each one of them has good ideas, but as far as an overall strategy, I'm kind of disenfranchised with all 3 of them.
Just early, it's obviously early in the night, and results are just starting to come in, but at the moment, the Liberals are holding the lead. They're knocking on the door of majority territory. Not quite there yet, but they're leading in 52 ridings. The Tories are sitting second with 33. The NDP at 17, according to the Elections Ontario website. I'm curious your thoughts on the campaign that the Tories ran over the past 6 weeks, and in particular Bart Maves in Niagara Falls, and Tim Hudak being a Niagara guy as well.
And I think I'm one of the disenfranchised in the sense that I didn't appreciate some of the negative campaigning from all three parties, and certainly when I'm looking to make a choice, I want to make an educated choice, and I think campaign strategists for all three parties did the electorate a huge disservice, and they tended to embellish and embroider and just downright fabricate things that just weren't true. And I understand fear-mongering and sometimes getting those emotional reactions out of the voter is important to run a campaign, but educating people, I think that should be the most important thing. And overall, I thought, although Tim Hudak's campaign strategy and Bart's campaign strategy, you know, they were in your face, they were at least honest, I thought, about what track they would take Ontario and certainly what plan they had in store. So I don't think anyone can doubt their integrity and certainly their honesty with respect to their platform. When I looked at the other two, the NDP and the Liberals, there was a lot of misinformation coming from both those parties, and certainly they weren't forthright with a lot of the issues that were laid out in their platform. So as an educated voter, I want to know these tough answers, and I thought Tim provided them. And they didn't have to be popular, but at least they were honest and straightforward.
Well, what we're seeing, though, with these results coming in, is this almost a justification that kind of negative campaign that we're seeing works? I mean, obviously, the Liberals are now they're sitting at leading in 54 ridings, which is right at majority.
Well, I think at some point people don't want to hear about the waste and the corruption and certainly the scandals of the Liberal government, and I think that's sad because I think we as an electorate have become desensitized to the responsibilities of government. So sitting at the kitchen table, hearing one more time about gas plant scandals, you just kind of shrug your shoulders and say, well, yeah, I guess that's commonplace in government, which is a sad commentary. I know from a family perspective, I want to know how your campaign, how your platform is going to affect me and my family personally. Certainly when I open up my hydro bill, certainly when I go to get my license plate renewed at the Ontario Ministry of Transportation. All these things have an impact on my pocketbook and my bottom line, and those are things that are important to me and certainly other families. So talking about gas plant scandals and all the other corruption, all the misdeeds of the Liberal government, I don't think it resonated with enough voters.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the Million Jobs Plan? It got a lot of airtime in this campaign. Tim Hudak took a lot of flack and grief over the bad math in it. It was criticized as everything from pixie dust to a plan that just simply isn't possible. What are your thoughts on it, and whether or not it's a feasible, workable plan?
Well, at the end of the day, I think it's all about job creation, and whether it was more symbolic in title only, that's fine with me. I knew we're not on the right track with respect to the Ontario, the province of Ontario and job creation and luring good-paying jobs back to Ontario and bringing in innovation. So, despite what the numbers say, and if it was an error in judgment with respect to putting the metrics out, I certainly looked at the optics of it. And anyone that can commit to job creation, that's a good message and that's a positive message, and I think that's what the electorate should take away from that 1 million jobs plan. It's more symbolic than anything else.
How about the town of Fort Erie in particular? What is it looking for in an MPP? What does it need from its representative at Queen's Park to, as you said, turn it around?
Well, again, I don't necessarily think we're looking for a whipped MPP. We're not looking for someone that practices party politics, that's an ideologue, that simply professes what the party faithful in Toronto is regurgitating. We want someone that can recognize the independence and certainly the unique needs of Fort Erie and convey those concerns to Queen's Park when the time comes. Whether it's going with the party or against the party, at the end of the day, someone that represents the interests of the residents of the town of Fort Erie.
We saw Niagara Falls go NDP in the by-election. Tim Hudak is from Fort Erie. His parents are still there. Shouldn't he own this riding and the PCs own this riding?
Well, again, I think both parties, both NDP and the Liberals, they've done an excellent job of branding Tim Hudak. And the first rule of politics is brand your opponent before he has a chance to brand himself. So there were some negatives about Tim Hudak that both parties were putting out there. It's unfortunate, but I know he loves the town of Fort Erie. He's very proud of where he comes from, and he's a good friend of mine, and I'm a good friend of Pat and Anne Marie, and I know they've worked tirelessly on this campaign.
We're now, the Liberals are now sitting at leading in 56 ridings, which puts them in a majority. If these numbers hold up for the rest of the night, what next for the Tories?
Well, I think there's some hard decisions that have to be made, and at the end of the day, I think it's all about leadership and governance. And if Tim Hudak is not the head of the party to take him to the promised land, then they have to search long and hard and see who the next person is going to be. I thought this was a great opportunity for Tim back in the 2011 election and certainly this election. But if he can't break through, then again, I think some hard decisions have to be made.
We've just gotten some numbers for the local ridings. In Niagara Falls, there are 41 polls that have reported. Wayne Gates has 2,031 votes. Maves has 1,215. In the Niagara West Glanbrook riding from 9 polls, so it's very, very early, Tim Hudak with 136, Mossy with 100, and McCormick with 86. And in St. Catharines, 9 polls as well, Jim Bradley with 409, followed by Jenny Stevens with 229, and then Matt Cisco with 214. Again, that's very, very early in the night.
Really quick, Sandy, we're really tight on time. Do you have a future in politics still? Is it something you're still looking at?
Well, anything I can do for my community, and certainly Fort Erie has been hit very, very hard. If there's something that I can do, lending my skill set, whether it's at the municipal level, whether it's at the regional level, whether it's at the school board level, I'm always happy to put my hand forward and lend a hand. I was a former counselor, so I understand the issues and certainly the challenges that Fort Erie faces.
Great.
Well, thank you, Sandy.
My pleasure.
Since we're on the topic of Fort Erie with Sandy and the South Niagara, let's take a look at this video with Progressive Conservative leader Tim Hudak.
Well, look, there's no doubt that the biggest issue asked me in Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, and Niagara Lake, it's jobs. No doubt about it. I love Niagara, so I was born and raised in the town of Fort Erie. And it breaks my heart when I see how many people are out of jobs in industry. I remember growing up in the north end of Fort Erie, and most of my buddies I play road hockey with, their mom or dad worked in the plant. We've lost 2 of 5 of those jobs. So my big focus, making sure that you can pay your hydro bill, making sure employers will hire again with energy they can afford, lower taxes on job creation, less debt. The whole thing is my Million Jobs Plan. You can see it all at millionjobsplan.com. And then local issues in the Falls, Fort Erie, Niagara Lake, get that Niagara South Hospital built. I want to see that happen. The other 2 leaders are pretty wishy-washy. I think that's essential for high-quality care in the peninsula. And then the second one, slots at the racetrack. Look, if we're going to save that racetrack, they can't go year after year begging for more money just to stay afloat. We need a permanent, sensible, and transparent solution. You put the slots back in, and you share part of the revenue with the town and with the horsemen. That'll give that track the stability and employment opportunities it deserves.
Well, the polls have been closed for a little more than half an hour now, so we're going to go to Welland Tribune reporter Marianne Firth on our results desk. Marianne, what are you seeing?
Well, it's 9:40 at the results desk, and taking a look at the polls that have been counted so far in Niagara West Glanbrook, as expected, Tim Hudak is taking the lead with just over 1,000 votes compared to David Mossy's 400, and that's with 15 polls counted so far. In Niagara Falls, Wayne Gates has also taken the lead with 6,200 votes to Bart Maves' 3,400. In St. Catharines, we're looking at 17 polls counted with Jim Bradley, as expected, taking the lead with 788 votes, 17 polls so far. Matt Cisco behind with 574, with Jenny Stevens with 468. In Welland, Cindy Forrester has pulled ahead of Frank Campion with 415 votes compared to his 892, and that's with 22 polls so far. So the races aren't quite as close as we were anticipating, but it is still very early on in the night. Will be some time before we can call any winners. So we're still going to have to keep a close eye on it. Okay, back to you, Karina.
Well, thank you, Marianne. We'll keep watching the results for you, and we'll be right back.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
Serving the Niagara Peninsula since 1987, Electronic Depot is your exclusive retailer for all of your audio-video needs. Featuring premium and exclusive brands often sought, Electronic Depot is a brick and mortar store offering the surroundings to demonstrate and evaluate the product you desire. We also offer service and installation of all products we sell. Visit us on Facebook or online at theelectronicdepot.ca.
Well, welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and sponsored this hour by Lancaster, Brooks & Welch in St. Catharines and Welland. We'd now like to welcome Niagara Region Chairman Gary Burrows. Hello.
Good evening.
We wanted to talk with you about the relationship of the regional government and the province, and a little bit about how you maintain that. How long do you wait before you contact the new Premier and the MPPs?
Tomorrow morning, I'm going to, obviously they won't have formed a government yet, but we'll be in contact right away because they play an integral part in the life of all of our residents, but in particular regional government.
When this election was called, it was somewhat bad timing for Niagara, and that Niagara Week was planned. It was going to happen, the following Monday from the day Premier Wynne was I guess, faced the province and said she'd asked the Lieutenant Governor to dissolve the legislature. After this government is put in place, what are the plans for Niagara Week? When do we expect this to be back on track?
I think it won't be a Niagara Week this year. Now, all parties and certainly the senior staff have had our presentations. They had them 10 days in advance. So we're going to move on from there. We're not going to try and get the 22 meetings in 3 days that we did have set up.
Right. So can you let us know, I guess from your perspective, or from Niagara's perspective, more importantly, what are the top 3 issues facing the region that the province can help with?
Well, certainly jobs are important to us, and we're trying to do a lot of things, and the government has been quite helpful lately. But number 2 is GO Train. And we must have GO Train now. I think we need it, and I personally believe we have to have it before the Pan Am Games next summer. So within a year, 2 in the morning, 2 at night. Extremely important for our economy, for our jobs, but also the highway is becoming almost impassable, the Queenie, and there's a lot of people, and I don't want to get into statistics, but 15,000 people leave St. Catharines area every morning to go to Toronto, and 6,800 of them just go to Hamilton. Those are the kind of people that will fill these trains. They will make it work, and it's good for both-way traffic.
Right. Well, we've had 2 mayors, Mayor McMullen from St. Catharines,
Yes.
Mayor Diodati from Niagara Falls this evening have been talking about GO Transit and its importance. Obviously, you're a huge supporter of it. A lot of the politicians in Niagara are supportive of Niagara. What evidence do we have, that we need GO Transit expansion here in Niagara, and what evidence do we have that it will have the benefits that everybody says it's going to have?
Well, just a little bit of background. What happened last fall, we realized that 5 municipalities and the Niagara Parks Commission were all seeing Metrolinx and all seeing the provincial government with their own stories about the need for GO. They were different stories, and I think the important thing that has happened, all 12 municipalities are behind GO, and that's why we're being listened to. I believe we're going to get it in time.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the number one priority is jobs. I know GO Transit has been talked about as one of those drivers of job creation. What else does Niagara need to boost that unemployment rate that is disturbingly high?
Well, and I think another piece of information that's so important, and we all like to talk about Niagara's getting older, sicker, tireder, and all of those things. And we've had, in the last 5 years, a job growth of incoming only 7,000 people. When you look at the grossed up Stats Canada numbers, it's actually 57,000 and incoming and 50,000 leaving. That's the key to the future, and that's why I bring it up with GO. It's so important. These people, 60% of those people coming in are of working age. 10% are seniors. So I think GO is the whole foundation, because many, many people now are coming from Toronto. They're working out of their homes. Their spouses or themselves would like to get into Toronto at least a couple of times a week. They're not going to take the GO bus.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about GO several times offline, and I'm support you on this, and believe it's, but I also don't think it's a magic bullet. It's not the one kind of solution for everything. So what else does Niagara need to make it more attractive to businesses to get those jobs?
And that's what the other thing that's happening, and I can't say it's the province that needs to make it happen, is that we're now starting to speak with one voice. So when we go to the province, we're representing all of our 12 municipalities. That's a difference, whatever we need from the province. Don't forget, they fund over 40% of all the costs for regional business.
So what are you asking the province for? What can the province do? What policies can they enact? What can they do differently that's going to make Niagara more attractive?
They can do two things. Continue to build a great partnership with us, because they are a catalyst, because they're a funding agency. Then they can speed up process time on regulations, on wetlands, on so many of the things that affect our communities. It's taking too long, and there's no reason that it has to take that long. So the new government starting tomorrow, that's going to be one of my first wishes to them, is to say, please, let's get the process moving.
Now, we're looking at results. The Liberals are continuing to move more into majority territory. They're leading in 59 ridings. The Tories are down to 27, the NDP at 20. Whichever government comes in tomorrow, and I mean, it's looking like it is going to be the Liberals, but whichever one comes in tomorrow, they're looking at a pretty hefty deficit. And in the past, when it's come to slaying that deficit, everybody's felt the pain. So how do we go about, I guess, bringing provincial finances under control without too much pain in the municipalities?
I think the same is happening at regional government, where we are getting ourselves in order. We've changed the way we do business, and that's what the province needs to do as well. I don't focus quite so much on the deficit as some of the parties do. What I'm focused on is making sure that the regions and the municipalities are not downloaded too much, because the property taxpayer just cannot pay anymore.
Right. Looking, I guess, to an age-old issue in Niagara, every now and then it rears its head, is governance. And wondering if you have any expectations or thoughts to the incoming government about the governance debate in Niagara.
Well, the governance debate, we've had it for a whole year at the Niagara region, talking about governance. We have we call it an AMO Niagara meeting tomorrow, where all the politicians have been invited just to get to know each other in the 12 municipalities and get to be working together. That's the critical piece, and we've done it in a couple of areas. We've done it in economic development. You won't see any economic development officer heading off on their own. They do it with the region, they do it together. That's how it's going to make a difference, and the province sees that. They've noticed a change. And one other very quick thing, with Pan Am, their map still ends in Burlington. We're here in Niagara, and I would say 95% of those coming to see the Pan Am Games are going to want to see Niagara Falls. We need to be involved.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to jump in here and say that Sun Media is declaring that the Liberals have won the election. Are you guys surprised by this at all?
So fast?
Yeah, and I mean, are they declaring a majority? Have they said that, or just that they're going to?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, the numbers that I'm seeing right now, I'm pretty shocked. But I mean, the people have their say. This is what a democracy is all about. If we are having a Liberal government coming in, as Sun Media has declared,
my phone calls will be easier
yeah,
tomorrow.
That's right.
I already know everybody, right?
That's right. But I mean, you mentioned that, you know, as far as Pan Am's concerned, that the map ends in Burlington.
Yes.
You know, that map was drawn under essentially this Liberal government.
Absolutely.
How do we change their minds? How do we open their eyes and let them know that, you can go past that Skyway Bridge?
We are doing that. We've gone to the Pan Am committee. I sit on one of their committees, talking about the mapping, talking about many of those participants may well come from the Buffalo airport, not from the Toronto airport, because it's substantially cheaper. We need to be prepared, and we need the province to get on track with us.
Yeah. So as somebody who's actually, you've carried the Liberal banner before.
I have, back in 04.
Right. Wondering what have your thoughts been on this campaign and the way it's rolled out over the past 6 weeks?
I too, I've heard others say, I hate the negative part. I would prefer to say what you intend to do, how you're going to run the government. That's the important thing. Every time that somebody wastes time, in my opinion, being negative on others, it doesn't help those that are supporting the others, and it doesn't help reinforce your own voters. So a little less negative, but they've all worked incredibly hard, and they deserve a lot of credit for that.
I guess we have just a minute left. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in terms of what you've seen?
I'm interested. With these glasses, I can't quite see your little tablet there, but
we're at 57 for the Liberals, 28 for the Tories, and 21 for the NDP.
Niagara.
Oh, you want Niagara?
Guy, please.
Well, we're working on that.
Okay.
We're about
and
to.
I'll get an update soon enough.
Thanks for this.
But I think it's so important that we get past this election, we start tomorrow with a fresh slate, and we get working for the Niagara region. It's incredibly important right now.
Yeah.
Okay, well thanks for this, Gary.
Wayne Gates is well ahead in Welland, and Tim Hudak is well ahead in Niagara West. Or sorry, you're right. Sorry, Wayne Gates is well ahead in Niagara Falls. Tim Hudak is well ahead in Niagara West, Glanbrook. That one was kind of expected. Jim Bradley is sitting at about 38% of the vote, leading Matt Sisko in St. Catharines. And in Welland, we have Cindy Forster in the lead with 45% of the vote, Frank Campion in second with 29.8%.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for this. Again, we appreciate your time. We're now going to go to Grant LaFleche, who's nearby. And Grant, are you surprised by what you're seeing tonight?
Thanks, Karina. Am I surprised? I'm shocked. I'm dumbfounded. I cannot believe the results. You can't see it behind me right now, but there's a television monitor showing the Liberals leading in 57 ridings. That's 3 more than they actually need to form a majority. Given how scandal-plagued the Liberal government was going into this campaign, I had thought at best they could manage a minority government. This just shows you, I think, how poorly run the PC campaign really was, and what happens to you, and please pay attention to you children watching tonight who think math class is a waste of time. What happens when you do bad math? Your political career goes down in flames. I'm completely shocked at the provincial results. Locally, we don't see any changes. I don't know that that particularly is going to shock a lot of people. The incumbents were all more or less strong incumbents. In the case of Niagara Falls, they had just put him in a recent by-election, so we saw no particular changes there. We're going to walk over now to Don Fraser, who's still keeping an eye on things on social media side. Don, are people as surprised as I am?
The general feeling is the gobsmacked feeling. Nobody predicted this level of Liberal support. At this point, sailing into low majority territory, you're talking about Tim Hudak and perhaps a campaign not particularly well run. This retweet just comes in. Tim Hudak thinks he's currently leading 224 seats. Pound math. So clearly a campaign that may have come off the rails a little bit, gone off the rails. I don't think the feeling I'm getting is that anybody predicted this. Certainly the pollsters didn't. So this has been a genuinely surprising result at this point. We'll see if she sails into majority territory, quite possibly.
Thank you, Don. So we're walking again. I'm going to do a little pivot here, just like the Ice Capades. The fact that this election has gone so well for the Liberals is truly shocking. This is a government that really did seem weak, did seem beatable, and I don't know if this is a result of the Liberals being that strong or, in fact, the opposition parties being that weak. So follow me back into Marianne's hidey hole. How are we doing locally in terms of results? There's no surprises, as I understand, but how are things standing so far?
No, it doesn't look like we're seeing any surprises just yet. Tim Hudak is well ahead of his competition out in Niagara West Glanbrook. Still very early on with the polls out there, though. We're looking at only 24 out of the 221 polls so far. In Niagara Falls, Wayne Gates has pulled well ahead of Bart Maves. He's pulling 50% of the vote right now, and we're more than halfway through the polls. So that one looks like it's either going to be a runaway unless Bart pulls ahead quite soon. And in St. Catharines, Jim Bradley is ahead with 39% of the vote. Matt Cisco is just behind with 28%, and Jenny Stevens is not too far behind with 26%. So that one's a little bit closer than I think we had originally thought. Forrester is pulling ahead in Welland with Campion shortly behind. We're looking at 46% to 29%.
Wow. Well, okay, so the incumbents are standing strong. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we're walking, and we're going to go back to the green room here. We're going to do a little Ice Capades pivot. I don't know if they have backward reporter walking event at the Olympics. We're going to pop into the green room where I'm hoping everybody's behaving themselves. Gentlemen, welcome back to TV Land. We're going to start with Walter Senzik. Walter, of course, is the CEO of the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. Walter, we're looking at a possible Liberal majority government if things keep going the way they're going. Pretty much everybody's jaw is on the floor, I think, at this point. What's your reaction to the latest numbers?
Well, I guess you just can't believe the polls. When you look at what happened with BC, Alberta, and Quebec, the polls have all been wrong. So it starts with the question, you read the polls, they say it's going to be a minority. We could be looking at a majority, and you ask yourself, what are the pollsters doing wrong?
Well, you heard it, pollsters. You're all fired. And really quick, of course, you've already heard from him tonight, longtime columnist Doug Herod. Waves for the audience. Doug, did you see this coming at all? Did you think that the Liberals would be able to have this level of support tonight?
No, I was sort of fluctuating between a Liberal minority and a Conservative minority, I think, like most people. But, yeah, to think that it might be a Liberal majority will set the Conservative campaign to be one of the worst ones ever run in Ontario. I mean, it's just astonishing. The Liberals were obviously there for the taking, and to have this kind of result is astonishing.
That it is. I'm not even sure what to make of it. You almost think that you're going to wake up tomorrow and this didn't actually happen, and the election will be that much closer. So we're actually going to wander. Where are we going to go next? Let's go talk to some of our editors while we're out here. So we're walking. Those of you who haven't actually seen the Standard Newsroom before, this is where all the magic happens. I know, you're jealous. So we're gonna zip around the corner, and we're gonna talk to Gord Howard. And Gord has been getting our pages ready for our hard copy edition for tomorrow. You've been watching the results come in all night, Gord. I barely can articulate anything resembling a sentence because I did not see these results coming. What do you make of this?
It's very surprising. Most people were torn between would it be a Tory minority, Liberal minority. It could have went either way, and the polls seem to say that too, but Liberal majority, I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Is this, in your mind, an issue that the pollsters just got it wrong and that Liberal support was much deeper? Or is this really a symptom of the PCs and the NDP unable to communicate a message effectively to voters that they liked?
I don't know. I wonder if a lot of people didn't make their decision at the ballot on the way to vote. I mean, I think it might have been that close. As a lot of people said, there wasn't a good choice. Maybe at the end, a lot of people were afraid to make that commitment to the two Tories.
Well, it could be. It could very well be that the job plan was a real problem. Well, that's the latest from the newsroom, and we're going to be right back after this commercial break.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce is Niagara's largest business organization with over 1,500 members representing 45,000 employees. With a dedicated advocacy team, the Chamber works hard to keep the cost of doing business in Niagara competitive and help businesses grow. Gain access to benefits like low rates for members and their employees from Virgin Insurance and gas savings with Gales Gas, as well as the Chamber Group Insurance Program. Stay connected with us.
Seconds, 15 seconds.
Well, welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014. Welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie, and brought to you this hour by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. More results are starting to come in, which we'll get to right after this video with NDP leader Andrea Horvath.
The Niagara Falls riding faces a number of serious issues, particularly jobs. We need good jobs back in this region. We need life to become more affordable for the people of the Niagara Falls area. And we also need to make sure our healthcare system is meeting the needs of people in this area and in the Niagara Falls riding in particular. What we're saying is, instead of giving away breaks to companies that then take that money and move jobs to other parts of the world and across the border, we need to be rewarding those companies that keep jobs here and that invest here. So investment tax credits and jobs tax credits instead of giveaways. The healthcare system, lots of topsy-turvy decisions around the Niagara region, and we want to make sure that the Niagara South Hospital is built, but that we are keeping some good services in other communities as well, so that people feel secure about their health. And in terms of affordability, look, we're the ones that talk about making sure that, for example, electricity rates are brought under control. We'd like to see big changes in that system, consolidation of agencies in the hydro system, making sure that we're passing savings on to ratepayers. We want to see a stop to the subsidization of electricity rates across the border. Lighting up the Manhattan skyline on Ontario's rates is not a good idea. And here in Niagara, I think it's insult to injury that rates are so high. And so we're going to tackle those rates for ratepayers in this province as well. And when it comes to jobs, not only do we have plans around tax incentives or credits for companies, but we also want to make sure that we are bringing the slots back to the racetracks. Look, we're the only party that believes that that's what needs to happen. That program had some problems, but those problems could have been fixed, and that's what we want to see. We want to see a reinvigoration of the activity at the track, not just for the next 5 years, but for the next 105 years.
Well, welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014. Cal, what are we seeing right now?
Well, we're seeing what's looking to be a pretty solidified Liberal majority government. Right now they are leading in 58 ridings, which is 4 more than they need to form a majority. The Tories are in second with 27, the NDP in third with 21. Closer to home here in Niagara, no changes, and to be honest, not even close races. I mean, everything we were expecting in terms of close races didn't materialize right out of the gate. Wayne Gates is sitting well ahead in Niagara Falls. He's got about 50% of the vote. Jim Bradley's got, I think, 38% in St. Catharines. Tim Hudak's got 46% in Niagara West Glanbrook. But of course, given the overall fate of the party, it'll be interesting to see what Tim does going forward. And in Welland, Cindy Forster's sitting, I think, mid 40% of the vote. So they're pretty well in hand here in Niagara. Pretty much no changes. All 4 incumbents will be returning.
Status quo in Niagara here. Joining us right now is Dolores Fabiano, the Executive Director of the Welland-Pelham Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Director of the Niagara Falls Chamber of Commerce. Dolores, progressive conservative parties are traditionally thought to be business friendly. Is that the case?
We like to think so. But you know, whatever party we end up with, we're going to have to work with, and it looks like we've got a Liberal party to work with.
So what is your approach with the Liberals coming in with a majority government? That's 4 years of I guess, consistency. You don't have to worry about the uncertainties that come with a minority government. How does the business community approach this particular Liberal government?
Well, we'll approach them the same way we have in the past. We'll make our calls, and we'll ask them to try and create that environment that allows business to do what they do best, create jobs and sustain their businesses. And
right. So for the businesses specifically in Niagara-on-Lake, Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, Welland, Pelham, what do they need? What actions or policies or oversight from the provincial government do they need to succeed?
Well, I mean, the taxes are always an issue. I mean, we're talking about transportation. The GO is a hot issue right now. The electrical issue right now about reasonable rates for our manufacturers, all those things.
And given what we heard on the campaign trail, how are you feeling in terms of being able to accomplish any of those things with this new government coming in?
Well, I'm shocked at the results, like most folks are. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We're going to work for a different result and hope it's there.
Yeah. Can it be done? I mean, we heard a lot of talk on the campaign trail about the deficit, about job creation, about the size of Ontario's debt. I guess what has to be done to support the business community?
Well, you know what? I really don't have that answer. I'm not sure. I mean, there were a lot of things said, a lot of promises made. We'll see how it rolls out.
Yeah. Now, you've got a bit of an interesting position representing several different municipalities.
Yes.
And you've got two districts that are, on one issue in particular anyways, at odds in terms of the South Niagara Hospital.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the South Niagara Hospital and where it should be located? I mean, is this something this government's going to be? That's something this government's going to have to tackle. And they started back in February. I mean, they were there at the dawn of the by-election.
Correct.
At that South Niagara or the Niagara Falls site.
Yes.
Is that a good site for it, or should we be looking elsewhere? Or is there another alternative?
Yeah. Whether it's a good site or not is. Far brighter people who can determine that over me. They've made the commitment to that site. We're all about the best health care that we can get here in Niagara. If that's the site that it needs to be, that they've decided it will be, so be it. Let's get it done.
Yeah. Now, the other interesting thing with the two districts that you represent, you've got NDP members in both of them.
We certainly do.
What does that mean? How do you approach that situation?
Well, Welland has been an NDP riding for over 38 years. It is what it is. You work with those politicians as best you can. And, we have had some successes in Welland with the 406 extension and all of the investment in Niagara College. We just keep chipping away.
Yeah. Does it make a difference which party your local MPP is versus if their party is different from the government party?
Yeah, I believe it does, although in the Welland riding, we've never known anything different. Well, not in my time.
We've heard from a lot of businesses down there who said that they feel that they've been punished because they're part of an NDP, or they've always voted NDP. And
well, it's interesting. The Conservative candidate in the Welland riding had some pretty provocative campaign signs saying, 38 years of nothing. It's time for change. And I think those hit home.
Yeah. Andrea Horvath, the NDP leader, she took a lot of criticism in this campaign from people within the NDP camp for saying she's moved too far to the right or too far to the center at the very least, because she was talking a little bit more about small business supports and kind of that pocketbook populism. Are you encouraged at all by that position? Is this a new NDP that is easier for business to work with?
Well, I hope so, because that's what we've got in our ridings, both of the ridings that I serve. So I hope so, but we'll see. Early days.
So what other issues, I guess, are going to be important for the businesses in the communities you represent?
Well, I know that tomorrow we're going to reach out to all of them and see what comments we get back, and we'll go through that, and whatever issues that they have, we'll move forward.
Yeah. Have any kind of inkling stuff that came up during the campaign that may be on the radar?
Well, the GO is certainly a priority for all of us here in Niagara, so that will continue. I know that the regional chair has been working hard on that, along with many players here in Niagara, and that will probably be the #1 priority for all of us.
Why is GO important for business?
Well, I mean, it's important for all of us in terms of the Niagara Falls riding, in terms of tourism, getting people down here, visiting all of the great things that we have to see. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that we now have a high-speed service from New York City to Niagara Falls, New York, but we don't have anything from Niagara Falls, Canada to Toronto. It's a bit of a disconnect, and it really makes sense that we should have that. So hopefully we can move that along.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're now going to check in with Marianne Firth on our results desk to find out what the latest is.
So it's 10:10, and we're back at the results desk. No surprise here that Tim Hudak is still in the lead with 40% of the vote over McCormick and David Mossy with 23 and 28% respectively. Still early on in Niagara West Lambrook, looking at only 48 polls out of 221 so far. Out in Niagara Falls, Wayne Gates has polled well ahead of Bart Maves, 21,000 votes to Maves' 13,000. And we're quite close to calling that riding, 249 polls out of 268, so it's getting quite close. Out in St. Catharines, Jim Bradley has pulled ahead with 9,574 votes. Close behind is Matt Sisko with 6,800, followed by Jenny Stevens with 66. And in Welland, Cindy Forrester is well in front with 10,513 votes to Campion's 6,200. So Reese is not quite as close as we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the night, but there is still time, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now it's back to you, Karina.
Well, thanks, Marianne, and we're joined again by Standard columnist Doug Harrod. What do you think about what you're seeing tonight?
Well, I guess I'm like everyone else. I mean, it's. I think everybody was kind of thinking more in terms of a conservative minority or a liberal minority, and then to see this onslaught, it's amazing. This may go down for the Conservatives as the worst conceived campaign in the history of Ontario politics, the way things are going.
Yeah, I think the one thing that worries me, Doug, about this result is what it speaks to this campaign and what worked in this campaign. And we're seeing the Liberals getting a huge wave of support across the province. And I don't think there's any argument that the last week they've been incredibly negative. And that's my biggest concern, is that this result really underscores that negative campaigns get results.
Well, true, but I think that the Conservatives set themselves up for it. Like they were throwing a fastball right down the middle of the plate for them to hit out in terms of taking such a hard line. I think it allowed people to have an anybody but Hudak approach in the individual ridings, like where the NDP might have been seen as a second or 1-2 battle with the Conservatives. The anti-conservative support would coalesce around the NDP, and I think in Liberal riding, or where the Liberals were seen as running 1-2, that sort of support coalesced around the Liberals. You know, sort of the anti-Hudak vote, as it were. And there would be all sorts of analyses once this thing is over, but the Liberals ended up taking a quite more of a left-of-center approach, I think, in this campaign than normal. And to me, it opened up the center.
And nobody filled that in.
And the Conservatives, in retrospect, might have had the opportunity to sort of hew more closely to the center that may have allowed them to at least have the potential to grab some votes beyond their core support. But the position they took really didn't lend itself to that. So it's like there's any number of Monday morning quarterbacks. That's a football analogy.
Yeah, I did better in the hockey pool than you. We are being told that Sun Media is now calling a Liberal majority, and we're going to go to a video with Premier Kathleen Wynne.
Our number one priority in Ontario as a government is to foster an environment where jobs can be created and where the economy can thrive. And that means making sure that we invest in people and their skills, that we invest in the right infrastructure in every part of the province, and that we create a business environment that allows entrepreneurialism and allows business to thrive. Every time I went to a round table, whether it was on a factory floor, as I did in Eastern Ontario, or in a farmer's field, I heard about the opportunities that would allow us to play to our strengths in this province. And that's my responsibility as Premier, is to find a way to support those businesses and communities in the things that they already do well, but that they can do better if they have just a bit of support. I don't think that cutting across government services is the answer. The reality is that the Conservatives would slash across government, and in terms of the NDP, they don't believe in supporting business. The size of the province and the variety of the geography means that we have such a diverse economy and such potential. And so if we're going to compete, we've got to be smart, we've got to be on the sharp edge of innovation, and in order to do that, we have to be willing to invest. That's our #1 priority.
Okay, welcome back. So we were continuing our discussion about what we're seeing tonight.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We're really desperate trying to find something of interest in the local races because they're mostly ROMs. But I think the one interesting thing in St. Catharines is the race for second and third between Matt Cisco and Jenny Stevens, because they're both city councilors. So I think this is for bragging rights on council. Who will win, Jenny or Matt? And it's going right down to the wire, it looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, going into the election, conventional wisdom really held that the better the NDP did, the better it'd be for the PC. The theory being that it would kind of bleed votes out of the Liberals. But I mean, we're not seeing that. I mean, Jim Bradley, as always, is well ahead. He's roughly at the same pace he was at in 2011, about 40% of the vote.
Yeah, although curiously, he probably has not that it's a slim margin, but you know, the least margin of winning in all the ridings. I think Hudak's is running away in Niagara West Glanbrook, and same with
Forster's well ahead. Forster's
and
47% of the vote.
You know, it's funny. We were here in February talking about the Niagara Falls by-election, and at that time it was a very close race, and we were thinking, well, you know, with by-elections, it's an anomaly, and it's going to be different in the provincial campaign when other issues, you know, more provincial issues come into the running, I think, and if anything, Gates has just ran away with it.
Oh, yeah,
just totally collapsed. I don't think the Liberals were particularly strong in that riding, which allowed votes to go towards the NDP and Wayne. But
yeah, interesting numbers actually in Niagara Falls. I mean, obviously, much lower voter turnout in the by-election. Wayne Gates is about 7,000 votes ahead of where he was in February. The Liberals are actually behind the pace that they were. They were sitting at about 14% of the vote.
Wow.
They had 19% in February. So the Liberal vote still hasn't recovered in Niagara Falls. Bart Maves is well back of Wayne Gates at 31%. Gates is sitting at 48.7.
And they've also changed candidates since the by-election too. Lionel Tupman, perhaps an unknown.
Right. Yeah. Right. But it's astonishing. I mean, Niagara Falls used to be have a very strong Liberal base, both federally and provincially, and certainly the by-election in February and this election, it's just collapsed totally. Again, I think it was a case where there was this anybody but Hudak conservative movement, and they decided, well, if we're going to succeed with that, we better park our vote with one of the opposing parties, and Gates was seen as the strongest candidate to attract those votes, and I think that's what's happened.
Yeah, the elections in Ontario and in Niagara West Glanbrook, Tim Hudak's riding, they're a little bit behind. They've only got results up for 55 out of the 221 polls. But even there, it's got to be worrisome for Tim Hudak. Yes, he's going to win his riding, but his numbers are way behind where they were in 2011. He's sitting at about 40% or 39% of the vote. In 2011, he won the riding with 51%.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I think you could run a Labrador Retriever for the Conservatives in that riding, and a well-trained one. But and I think they would succeed there. So it's astonishing that he would. Yeah, I guess it just speaks to.
Do you think, given this result tonight, is this the end of Tim's run as leader?
There will be. I think Tim's resignation will rival the speed of light tonight. I think it will be that quick, and you know, it has to be terribly disappointing. I mean, it's hard to believe the Liberals were so vulnerable given their track record and the baggage they were carrying. What's my baggage joke about Pearson Airport? I can't remember. but carry more baggage than the baggage handlers at Pearson Airport. That's it. Didn't say it right. But anyways, for them not to be able to do it then is just amazing.
Well, we'll be right back after this break.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce is Niagara's largest business organization with over 1,500 members representing 45,000 employees. With a dedicated advocacy team, the Chamber works hard to keep the cost of doing business in Niagara competitive and help businesses grow. Gain access to benefits like low rates for members and their employees from Virgin Insurance and gas savings with Gales Gas, as well as the Chamber Group Insurance Program. Stay connected with us.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
Serving the Niagara Peninsula since 1987, Electronic Depot is your exclusive retailer for all of your audio-video needs. Featuring premium and exclusive brands often sought, Electronic Depot is a brick and mortar store offering the surroundings to demonstrate and evaluate the product you desire. We also offer service and installation of all products we sell. Visit us on Facebook or online at theelectronicdepot.ca.
Welcome back to Niagara Votes 2014, brought to you by the Old Bank Bistro and Bar in Fort Erie and sponsored this hour by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. We're joined by Walter Senzik, CEO of the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. What do you think of what we're seeing tonight?
Well, I don't think anyone predicted the majority for the Liberals, so there's going to be a lot of pollsters who are going to go back to their formulas and they're going to look and say, how could they have gotten it so wrong? And if this is a protest vote against the lack of vision for any of the parties in terms of, I think most people thought it was going to be a minority, and what we see with the results today is that there is an interesting event that's taking place in Ontario. Yeah. Because I don't think any party really had the vision to carry a majority, but so that's I think the story is that why is there a majority when each party really didn't have the vision to go forward.
Well, with this one in particular, I mean, we essentially know what's coming next. Kathleen would have said on several times she's going to reintroduce this budget that I guess was the catalyst that sparked this election. What does that budget mean for businesses, particularly here in Niagara?
Well, I think the struggle on the overall budget is when you introduce something like the Ontario Pension Plan, the cost to businesses will be calculated out in the next 4 to 5 years because it's not going to be introduced until 2017. But it still does create a cost for business. And you compile on top of that the rising energy costs, you look at the competitive nature of the global economy, and you start to ask the questions, are we in the best position that we can be in as a province to both retain our businesses and attract new business? And I don't know if that budget will be the budget that can answer that question for businesses. I think businesses will struggle to see how they fit into the new Ontario.
What do businesses want to see from this government? You know, I guess as an alternative to this budget, what would be better for business in Ontario?
I think you look at, in terms of industry, it's looking at competitive hydro rates, energy rates. When you look at small business, it's looking at the regulatory burdens, and people talk about regulatory burdens a lot. It's real. When you talk to the person who is running a winery, when you talk to the person who's running a restaurant, and they talk about the kind of overburden on having to fill out forms, and that is the kind of talk when you talk about productivity. That's the kind of issue when you talk about productivity. So what businesses are looking for is signals that, one is we're looking after our own financial house, two is we're creating a competitive place for which our businesses can be successful, and three is we're helping business, not hindering business growth.
And again, I don't see that necessarily moving forward as being the focus of the government of the day. And if we want to create the kind of prosperity that we talk about, it has to be done by building and supporting the private sector. And that's where I think businesses are struggling today.
How do you feel Niagara sits right now with no change? We've got 4 pretty solid victors in Niagara. What does it mean for this region in particular and the representation we're sending to Queen's Park?
I'll be honest with you, it's difficult for Niagara, and it's difficult from a business perspective, because I said this before, when businesses internationally are going to look to relocate or locate their operations, they look at political climate. So when you look at the greater Toronto area, when you look at Southern Ontario, and you're an international business looking to operate, you are going to look at what is the political representation. And in Niagara, you've got the 2 NDPs in Welland and Niagara Falls, and that will and does have an impact on attracting new business to the community. And that's not something that's a political ideology, that's just the fact of doing business. So if you're a European company and you're doing a checklist of where I'm going to locate my international business, extend a branch of my business into a certain country or province, you're going to look at things like political climate, what is the mentality or what is the way of a community, and one of the elements is who they're electing. That does have an impact on Niagara, and until we realize that, I think we're going to struggle. And that's just a reality of who we put in office.
Yeah. I've got to imagine though one area that should be good for Niagara is the GO Transit. We've heard from Premier Wynne and from Transportation Minister Glenn Murray about Niagara is on their radar, and it is something that they push forward. Jim Bradley has talked about it on the campaign. Are you confident that we can make this happen?
I think with Minister Bradley's support and who's being behind this 100%, and I think with what you've been hearing from Wayne Gates on how he's supportive of Go to Niagara, I think Go to Niagara is more a reality than it was even 6 months ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if by September there's an announcement that Go will come to Niagara, and that will be a catalytic moment in which we are finally plugged into the GTA economy. And the impact of that will start to show itself in the coming years, being able to have that kind of umbilical cord connected to the GTA.
We've asked some of our other guests about this, but how is it going to help Niagara? Like when you're talking about being connected to the GTA, are you talking about people being able to get jobs outside of the region, or people coming to the region?
It's both. It's the mobility. It's the movement of people. So when you talk to a manufacturer in St. Catharines who's having a struggle to attract that kind of talent, this kind of connectivity along the corridor into the GTA allows talent to come into Niagara, but it also allows people to live in Niagara and work elsewhere. And that's a critical component of how we're going to build the economy, is by attracting people to work here, but also allowing people who live here to go to other parts of the GTA and work in an affordable way, because as we saw with the gas prices last week, gas prices aren't getting cheaper. So having an affordable transportation system that goes into the GTA and a regular transportation system will be a benefit for both Niagara and for the communities that we're attracting into Niagara.
So you were just talking about some of the struggles that local businesses have. How are you going to approach this government tomorrow, I guess, since it is the same government now? What's your strategy? Do you have to change your strategy? Or?
Well, I think fortunately we don't have to hit the reset button. I think we can now confidently get in front of government, and we have a list of areas that we're working on, and we don't have to re-educate. We can now meet with the current government, and now that they've got a majority, we can say, here's what we've been working on, and here's what you said you're going to do, and we want a timeline for how you're going to do this. And that is probably the biggest benefit of the turnout for today's election, is that starting tomorrow, we don't have to re-educate. They know where we stand, this current government. And so now we're going to be standing at their door saying, now you have to deliver.
It looks like we are going live right now with Rob Houle to the Jim Bradley campaign.
Area last time. This time the spillover effect was very helpful, but you never know when you're starting out how it's going to be. You start to pick that up when you go door to door, when you're speaking to people, and you get the vibe response. What wasn't in this campaign was a lot of negativity or or anti-leader situations you have when you've had some there several terms. Mr. McGinty was there, for instance. He was there 3 terms as a premier. You start to accumulate enemies along that line. With a new leader, a new approach, it made a significant difference. And I had a great team working with me. You can't do this without a good team like this, and I'm extremely grateful to them for it.
And of course, on that line of negative Fort Athens, that kind of thing, Liberals did campaign. How do you think your party did as a whole?
Well, I think at the provincial level, all 3 parties ran both negatively. I can tell you that locally, it's always my policy to run a very positive campaign, and that's exactly what I do. If you look at my campaign literature, it's only positive stuff. There's nothing about my opponents. There's no negativity at all about it. It's simply stating positively what I stand for, what our party stands for, and I think that's appreciated by people as well. What will happen in the future, we don't know. The House is going to reconvene. If there's a majority government, it will be different, but we're still accountable to the people of this province, majority or minority. I did detect on the campaign trail from time to time people who said there's a log jam in the legislature, not much is passing, we majority, and you didn't know whether they were going to choose the other 2 parties or our party. They happened to choose the Liberal Party to be the government, but it could have been one of any 3 parties. So I was delighted to see, as I say, that we won. Extremely grateful to the people of St. Catharines. I looked at the map of the city as the results were coming in, and it was all around the city. I congratulate my 2 opponents. Actually, more than 2 opponents, but there were 2 main parties. But all the opponents were very good in the campaign. And anybody who will take on that responsibility deserves a lot of credit. I congratulate them on the campaigns they ran. They put forward the best face for their party and for them as individuals, and so to be congratulated.
Jim, what keeps you going after all this time? What keeps you motivated?
The issues are out there. They're out. I've enjoyed politics very much at all. Follow international politics in Latin America, the Middle East, Europe, around the world, and in the United States and Canada. And I've always had interest in the issues. It's the various groups I work with in the community as well. And that's helpful in fact, my re-election, that I've worked individually with various groups and organizations and ensured that their voice is heard through me at the provincial level of government. I think there are always those issues to pursue. It's never ending. Those issues will always be there, and our approach is, I think, a positive one. I've enjoyed being Minister of the Environment. If the chooses me to be in cabinet again, I'll be delighted. That is her decision entirely. If she said you can be Minister of the Environment, I'd be happy. But I'm prepared to serve whatever capacity the Premier determines.
On the campaign trail, did you get much feedback? Are people just running the ball? Football scandals again? Job one?
There was some of that, but I think there was a recognition. One of the things I noted in the campaign that nobody seemed to say was that gas plants, Mr. Jack promised to do exactly what the government did. There were commercials that were run, there were brochures that were put out, there was a YouTube video, there was interviews that took place, and Mr. Hudak said that he would cancel the plants and move them as the government did. The government happened to win, carried out that promise. My presumption was he would have carried out that promise. So I think there were some people who knew that, but they look at the total picture. They don't simply look at individual instances. We always ask that they compare us to the Almighty, but they compare us to our opponents. And ultimately, people have to make a choice as to the 3 parties that are main parties or 4 parties that are running, the leaders of those parties and individual candidates, and make that choice. And there's going to be not all the wisdom resides in any political party, and not all the detrimental aspects are part of any particular political party. So they make their choice based on what they feel is best for the province out of those who are available. I'm just very happy to make the choice it did. I didn't know what was going to happen when I was...
Okay, so Jim Bradley was just talking about how he ran a clean campaign locally. Do you think that helped him? Were people unhappy about negative campaigns, or was it a clean campaign in St. Catharines overall?
Well, I think you had 3 candidates who ran a campaign of integrity, and I
I think kudos to all of them, to Matt Cisco and Jenny Stevens and Jim. They stuck to what they've accomplished or what they wanted to do for the city, and that's, in today's politics, it's actually refreshing. Yeah, to hear Jim say he ran a clean campaign and not disputing that, but I think above him, or the broader provincial campaign, very much wasn't. How much of a factor do you think that had in tonight's results?
Well, I think it had an enormous factor, considering that by all large accounts, Hudak won the debate. So I think most people thought that was going to be the swing, but the swing didn't happen. And was it because of the negative advertising? And then, so I think you have to take all of that into account and ask the questions of, he was the strongest person of the leaders at the debate. That should have given him momentum, but the momentum wasn't there, and why not? And the negative advertising, which is just becoming more and more commonplace, I think is turning more people off. So maybe the voter turnout will be an indication as to the apathy, or the people who are just tired of this type of election campaigning.
A lot of people were predicting that it would be a lot closer between Matt Cisco and Jim Bradley tonight. Matt Cisco's campaign team really worked hard, I think, in this area. We saw a lot of Matt Cisco signs. Jim Bradley has been the MPP in St. Catharines for 36 years, 138 days as of today. You've obviously worked with him through your job. What do you think his hold is on the city?
Well, I think he's a great fan of the city, and I think what he's done for the city is his track record is impressive.
Okay, we're now going to go to the Wayne Gates campaign with Tony Rasciuto in Niagara Falls.
Bringing jobs to our young people so they can stay right here in Niagara and get out of the basements of their parents. We got to get for our young people. I want to thank the seniors who worked so hard on my campaign. I also want to thank many union activists who helped me. I owe you a lot. But I also have to say thank you to my union. I will never forget my roots. I'm who I am today because of what I went through for all those years. I want to thank my wife. I know they want me to do this quick, but I'm going to tell you a story. For the first time since March break, I spent the entire day with my wife, going from Crystal Beach to Ridgeway to Stevens Hill. We went everywhere today. It was a real joy. We didn't even have one fight in the 12 hours we were together. It was an incredible day. So I want to thank my daughters who are here, Chantel, Carolyn, Jacqueline, my beautiful grandkid. And my extended family, who's always stood behind me all these years. I also want to thank the candidates. Strong democracy means strong competition, and we had that. A healthy competition. Since the by-election, we have seen that the Niagara region want change. Over the last month, a lot of walking, a lot of knocking on doors, and a lot of listening. And that's the key. Listening. That's the back of the room. Just thought I'd say that. The people in this riding want to see action. They want to see a GO train. The game changer for this region and our young people. On getting the slots back at the racetrack. Building a new Niagara Falls hospital. Use local workers, local businesses, local engineers. Put people back to work. And the efficient affordability. That was what this election was all about. And we campaigned for progressive change that will help the middle class and working families. I will continue this campaign in Queen's Park and in our community right here. I intend to continue to be a very vocal, very assertive in driving forward with an agenda of change. That includes targeted tax credits for jobs. The plan's simple. You hire somebody, you get a tax credit. Let's put people back to work, particularly our young people. Families and communities here have taken a lot. Now we must turn a corner, and I'll be working on your behalf. Make sure that happens. That's the way I am. Campaign called me Pinocchio. I just want to make it clear. The only thing that me and Pinocchio have in common is we're both short. Let's be clear. We work for pretty special interests. I work for you, and you. Throughout this meeting, we've done a lot, and there's a lot more to do. I look forward to working with all of you in the coming months and years to make our communities even stronger. I am ready to deliver results for Niagara Falls riding in Queen's Park. Now let's all enjoy the rest of the evening after a long, hard campaign. And I want to finish by saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Take a leisurely drive down to Fort Erie along the Niagara River Parkway and experience the Old Bank Bistro, where atmosphere meets value. You can bank on that. Or visit us at oldbankbistro.com and enjoy.
The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce is Niagara's largest business organization with over 1,500 members representing 45,000 employees. With a dedicated advocacy team, the Chamber works hard to keep the cost of doing business in Niagara competitive and help businesses grow. Gain access to benefits like low rates for members and their employees from Virgin Insurance and gas savings with Gales Gas, as well as the Chamber Group Insurance Program. Stay connected with us.
Hi, I'm Rob Welch of Lancaster, Brooks & Welch. Thanks for watching Niagara Votes. We're Niagara's full-service law firm. We've been invested in the community for over 130 years.
With integrity and commitment, you can rely on our expertise and a current perspective on legal matters that affect Niagara.
Serving the Niagara Peninsula since 1987, Electronic Depot is your exclusive retailer for all of your audio-video needs. Featuring premium and exclusive brands often sought, Electronic Depot is a brick-and-mortar store offering the surroundings to demonstrate and evaluate the product you desire. We also offer service and installation of all products we sell. Visit us on Facebook or online at theelectronicdepot.ca.
Welcome back. We're going to go now to Grimsby to hear from Tim Hudak with Ray Spiteri standing by.
Both